Hey everyone, this is Light Novel Sound. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the series, feel free to leave a like and drop a comment below. It really helps the channel. And if you'd like faster updates or want to request a story, you can support the channel over on Buy Me a Coffee. Now, let's pick up the story where we left off. Chapter 401, Quickly Grow Up. A few companion eggs dropped as well, so Zhou Wen fed them to his companion beasts. Tyrant Behemoth finally began to evolve after eating the 2 poison bat companion eggs. The tiny behemoth, which was originally only half a person's height, grew its fur crazily. Its muscles swelled like balloons, and soon it grew to almost 4 meters tall. The muscles on its body were like steel, filled with explosive power. Tyrant Behemoth, legendary, evolvable. Life Providence, extreme strength. Strength, 21. Speed, 21. Constitution, 21. Primordial energy, 21. Talent skill, mountain devouring. Companion form, boxing glove. Zhou Wen had been feeding it for quite some time, with plenty of epic companion eggs in the mix. It took this long before Tyrant Behemoth advanced to the legendary stage, so he had no idea when it would advance to the epic stage. However, Tyrant Behemoth was indeed ferocious. It was nearly 4 meters tall when it was only at the legendary stage. If it advanced to the mythical stage, it might really be able to devour a mountain. It would be unimaginably massive. Little Behemoth, quickly grow up. I don't expect you to advance to the mythical stage. Hurry up and advance to the epic stage. Be a happy fighter for me. Zhou Wen actually didn't wish for Tyrant Behemoth to advance to the mythical stage. The 6 hero families had plenty of resources, yet it was difficult for them to nurture mythical companion beasts, so it would be even harder for him. If it weren't for the game dungeons that allowed them to grind for resources, Zhou Wen probably wouldn't have been able to afford to rear a mythical companion beast. Zhang Tianlun had been in a bad mood recently. He had imagined that he would be able to get close to the girls from the Weiyang Club after he got together with Sully. That way, he could then hit on the other beauties. With his family background and position as the vice president of the student council, it didn't seem difficult. However, to his surprise, those female students from the Weiyang Club didn't participate in activities with the student council, and instead regularly hung out with the people from the Xianxia Club instead. Although Zhang Tianlun's family had some connections, he was naturally far more inferior to Lai Xianxia. He didn't dare to do anything about the Xianxia Club. He originally wanted to invite YG to help him deal with the Xianxia Club, but YG repeatedly rejected the notion. Nothing happened. This made Zhang Tianlun even more depressed. After leaving campus, Zhang Tianlun was heading home. When he walked to a small alley, he saw a pale-faced, middle-aged man with a sickly look walking over. The middle-aged man's appearance reminded Zhang Tianlun of Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen's face was a little pale, as though he hadn't been out in the sun for years. It felt very similar to the middle-aged man, worsening Zhang Tianlun's mood. When Zhang Tianlun saw that the man was staring at him, he couldn't help but feel PS said. He glared back and wanted to ask what he was looking at. However, the moment his eyes met the middle-aged man's gaze, he was left rooted to the spot. He felt as if there was a ball of mist in the middle-aged man's eyes that was attracting him. He couldn't help but look into those eyes, unable to think about anything else. Jock kept looking at Zhang Tianlun and slowly walked in front of him. Then, he stretched out a hand and carefully pulled out a strand of hair from Zhang Tianlun's head. Zhang Tianlun was jolted awake from the pain. Even though he did not know why he was suddenly confused, he felt a sense of fear when he looked at the middle-aged man. He couldn't help but retreat and ask, "What are you trying to do?" Jock ignored Zhang Tianlun and pinched the strand of hair with his fingers before taking out a palm-sized doll. The doll looked like a clown. Jock stuck Zhang Tianlun's hair onto the clown doll's head. The soft strand of hair seemed to turn into a steel needle in his hands. It quickly sank into the body of the clown doll. At that moment, Jock looked up at Zhang Tianlun with a strange, chilling smile. He pursed his slightly purple lips and said, "I have something I need your help with. There's a student named Zhou Wen in your school. Help me get a strand of his hair or nails." "Are you crazy? Why would I do such things for you?" Zhang Tianlun didn't know why, but the fear in his heart intensified as he spoke. He kept retreating, and if not for his legs going soft, he would have already turned around and escaped. Jock didn't say anything to Zhang Tianlun. He glanced at a stray dog who was rummaging through a trash can. He reached out in the air, pulled out the stray dog's fur, and sucked it to his fingers. Under the pain, the stray dog barked at Jock, but Jock only gave it a look before the stray dog instantly turned around and ran off with its tail between its legs. It didn't even dare to bark again. Jock took out another clown doll, inserted the dog fur into the head of the clown doll, and drilled an unforgettable scene into Zhang Tianlun's mind. Jock's eyes became frighteningly bright as he stared intently at the clown doll in his hand. He had a frightening smile on his face, as if he was a clown smiling. That pale face looked like the white face after a clown put on clown makeup. In the next second, Jock exerted some strength to rip off the clown doll's arm. At the same time, the stray dog let out a tragic cry as fresh blood spewed out. One of its front legs seemed to be ripped off by an invisible hand. Jock yanked at the doll in his hand even more crazily. Very quickly, the remaining limbs of the doll were torn off. Similarly, the stray dog lost its limbs as blood splattered everywhere. Under Zhang Tianlun's horrified gaze, Jock tore off the clown doll's head. When Zhang Tianlun saw the stray dog being beheaded in front of him, he broke down mentally. He screamed and turned around to run. "Your hair is here too." Jock's soft words made Zhang Tianlun, who was extremely terrified, stop running. He stood there like a stone statue, without moving. "I'll give you 2 days. I want to see Zhou Wen's hair or nails, otherwise you will be like that stray dog." As Jock spoke, he reached out and stroked the clown doll's head. Zhang Tianlun instantly felt his scalp go numb, as if a huge, invisible hand was caressing his head. His body trembled and he fell to the ground, his pants soaked. Jock frowned, seemingly unwilling to look at Zhang Tianlun again. Covering his nose, he turned around and slowly walked out of the alley. At the same time, Zhang Tianlun heard Jock's hoarse voice. "Remember, you only have 2 days. How am I to find you after I get it?" Although Zhang Tianlun was extremely afraid, his desire to live compelled him to ask in a trembling voice. "After you get it, I will naturally appear by your side. Whether you live or die is in your hands." As Jock spoke, he turned and left the alley. Zhang Tianlun got up and secretly chased down the alley, only to find that there was no one on the streets. There was no sign of the middle-aged man. Zhang Tianlun would have thought that he had just had a nightmare if not for the bloodstains on the ground and the stray dog's corpse. Chapter 402, Luck composition. Apart from eating at the cafeteria and bringing Wang Lu breakfast, Zhou Wen hardly left the house. With the baby tiger, the efficiency of grinding increased significantly. The dimensional crystals and companion beasts that dropped had improved significantly, be it in terms of quantity or quality. +5 luck really shows an obvious improvement. If I have a few more points, wouldn't the drop rate double? Zhou Wen thought about where to get another pet that added luck. Due to the lucky baby tiger's life providence being unique, even if he had one more baby tiger, the luck wouldn't stack. Therefore, it was useless even if Zhou Wen went to Binyang Cave to grind for the baby tiger again. Wait a minute. The lucky baby tiger's life providence can't be stacked, but can it be synthesized? When two different companion beasts combine, they might produce a different life providence. Just like when I fused the silver-winged flying ant and sky spider youngling, the king of low altitudes became the king of sky. If I were to fuse the baby tiger with some other cat or dog, would I be able to turn it into a lucky cat or something? Would it be stackable? Zhou Wen was considering the viability of this matter. If he could really synthesize one like this, he could completely synthesize the luck-type life providence with another powerful companion beast. It would give him a luck bonus and powerful combat ability. Zhou Wen was only thinking about it. He couldn't have the blood-colored avatar die, nor could he refresh dungeons. All his thoughts were empty thoughts, making it impossible for him to farm the baby tiger. As he hadn't refreshed the dungeon, Zhou Wen had nearly wiped out all the monsters he could grind in the past few days. He was about to reach a point of not having any monsters to grind on. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation since obtaining the mysterious phone. Although there were also instance dungeons he had never been before, such as Mount Leijun, Zhou Wen didn't dare visit them as he was afraid the blood-colored avatar would die inside. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had many books to read, so it wasn't that he had nothing to do. He was engrossed in an ocean of knowledge every day. Zhang Tianlun felt like crying. He originally believed that, using his relationship as a fellow schoolmate, it wouldn't be difficult to get a strand of Zhou Wen's hair. In the beginning, he had sought out the Xianxia club members who were closer to Zhou Wen. He claimed that the student council wanted to host a joint activity with them, hoping that Lai Xianxia and Zhou Wen could participate. He was responsible for all the expenses. For this, he spent a large sum to get some special dimensional zones passes. However, to his surprise, Lai Xianxia told him that Zhou Wen was in seclusion and refused to participate in any activities. In the end, the joint activity was held. He had spent the money but failed to see Zhou Wen. What do I do? What do I do? Zhang Tianlun was extremely anxious. There was less than a day left. He had to obtain Zhou Wen's hair as soon as possible. He didn't dare imagine the outcome of failure, and dared not remember the tragic state of the stray dog. Zhang Tianlun had thought of many methods, but they were unviable. Finally, he had no choice but to find Zhou Wen himself. He had to obtain a strand of Zhou Wen's hair no matter what. Zhou Wen was reading a book near the balcony on the second floor. The sunlight shone on him, making him feel warm and comfortable. As he wore the Truth Listener earring in its companion form the entire time, Zhou Wen heard Zhang Tianlun's approach before he even reached the yard's entrance. Why is he here? Zhou Wen was puzzled. Zhang Tianlun was clearly walking towards his building and was about to reach his yard's entrance. I have to get his hair. I have to get it. Zhou Wen listened carefully and heard Zhang Tianlun muttering to himself. It was so soft that ordinary people might not be able to hear it even if they stood beside him. However, truth listeners' hearing was just too good. Zhou Wen heard him clearly. Whose hair does he want? Mine. What does he want my hair for? Zhou Wen immediately made some bad connections. There were many magical dimensional forces in the League. Legend had it that some people in the West District had curse-type primordial energy skills that allowed them to curse a person to death remotely through mediums such as a person's hair and nails. There were many similar abilities in the East District, and they were even more exaggerated. There was no need for any physical contact. Just knowing the time someone was born was enough to take their life, even from a great distance away. Zhou Wen currently didn't have much knowledge regarding such primordial energy skills. In a real battle, be it an epic human or companion beast, he had the power to contend a fight. Instead, he was afraid of powers that he could succumb to without even seeing. Against such powers, even if he had the annihilative powers, it would be of no use considering how he couldn't find or hit his target. For instance, many powerful epic experts died without even seeing a dimensional creature while exploring dimensional zones. It wasn't that they weren't strong enough, but that their resistance against the unknown force was too weak. They were nothing but boors who were unable to use their strength. Of course, there were boors that succeeded. Legend had it that the Xia family's hero had cultivated the invincible connate divine art in the past, reaching an invulnerable state. No matter how evil power it was, nothing could kill him. He was a classic example of being able to be a ramrod that could charge straight forward. However, he ultimately didn't end well when he entered a dimensional zone. Therefore, Zhou Wen always firmly believed that knowing one's enemy was the key to winning all battles. It was best if he didn't take any risks. After all, he only had one life. While Zhou Wen was pondering over it, Zhang Tianlun had already pressed his doorbell. It looks like the people from the bureau have arrived. Zhou Wen had guessed what was going on. After some thought, he went down and opened the door. He wanted to find out from Zhang Tianlun about the person whom the bureau had sent. Zhang Tianlun, why are you looking for me? Zhou Wen asked Zhang Tianlun, who was outside. I have an important matter to discuss with you. Can I come in? Zhang Tianlun asked carefully. Come on in. Zhou Wen kept a high alert the entire time. He didn't get too close to Zhang Tianlun, maintaining a certain distance. To his surprise, Zhang Tianlun slammed the door shut after entering and plopped to his knees. Zhou Wen, please save me. If you don't save me, I'm dead. What are you doing? Zhou Wen frowned slightly. Zhang Tianlun said, the night before yesterday, I applied for leave and went home. On the way, I bumped into a strange middle-aged man. Zhang Tianlun recounted what had happened that night. No matter how he thought about it, he knew it was impossible to get Zhou Wen's hair by force. He knew that Zhou Wen was from the An family, so he couldn't afford to offend him, nor could he use force. Zhou Wen, I'm begging you, save me. I really don't want to die. Zhang Tianlun kowtowed as he spoke. Zhou Wen reached out to stop Zhang Tianlun. Although he didn't have a good impression of Zhang Tianlun, he didn't have any feud with him either. He felt uneasy hearing the pleading. However, just as his hand touched Zhang Tianlun's hand, Zhang Tianlun's flesh and bones exploded and his arms turned into a bloody mist. Chapter 403, Battling Jock. The two never expected such a turn of events. No matter how fast Zhou Wen retreated, his hand was quickly stained by the blood mist as Zhang Tianlun fell to the ground and screamed. In a forest in the suburbs, Jock revealed a mocking smile. How could he place his hopes on others? He made Zhang Tianlun firmly believe that he needed Zhou Wen's hair. Only then would Zhang Tianlun be able to fool Zhou Wen, because even Zhang Tianlun himself believed that it was real. Others wouldn't be able to see through the flaws. Old pal, it's been a while since we got some exercise. It's time to come out and get some exercise. As Jock spoke, a sanguine aura on him surged and condensed into a blood-colored clown life soul. The blood-colored clown life soul came in front of Jock. Jock pulled out the strand of Zhang Tianlun's hair from the puppet and gave it to the clown life soul. The clown life soul reached out to grab the hair, and it immediately burned with a blood-colored flame and quickly burnt to ashes. It transformed into a sanguine beam that fused into the clown's body. By using your blood as the medium, I'll use the soul as a guide, Blood Hex Clown. Use your strength to make those ignorant people tremble in grief once again. Jock looked excitedly at the Blood Hex Clown and growled. A sanguine glint flashed in the eyes of the Blood Hex Clown as a demonic blood-colored flame rose over its body. In his dorm, Zhou Wen looked at the blood on his hand and tried to shake it off, but it was already too late. He felt his ears heat up before a force entered his body from his palm and spread through his entire body. Large amounts of primordial energy surged into his body. It was massive, almost comparable to the lightning bolt he had endured at Dragon Gate Grotto. Zhou Wen immediately realized that Truth Listener's evil nullification life soul had taken effect, resolving the strange power of the assailant. I was still too careless. Zhou Wen reflected over his faults, but after some thought, he realized that he was up against someone bent on getting him. No matter how prepared he was, it was inevitable for him to miss out certain things. The best way was to eliminate the enemy first to truly feel worry-free. But now, he didn't even know where his opponent was. When he looked at Zhang Tianlun, who had his arms torn apart, Zhou Wen felt a chill run down his spine. It was Zhang Tianlun this time, someone he didn't care too much about. But what if the next person was Lai Chuan, Wang Lu, or the rest? Could he still remain so indifferent? Zhou Wen called the school's emergency number and called for a doctor to handle Zhang Tianlun. Jock stared at the Blood Hex Clown in front of him. Seeing the sanguine light in its eyes glow with greater intensity, he believed that the Blood Hex's power was in control of Zhou Wen. He ordered, "Bring him here." Zhou Wen felt an endless stream of primordial energy surge into his body, preventing him from being able to accommodate it as large amounts of primordial energy seeped out of his body. Suddenly, the Truth Listener earring seemed to be pulled by something as it floated up and pointed in one direction. Zhou Wen's heart stirred as he walked outside. The moment he opened the door, he saw Jing and Wang Lu standing outside, about to knock on the door. Zhang Tianlun's screams had alerted them, which was why they had come over to take a look. "Help me look after him. Don't let him die. I have to make a trip." Zhou Wen pointed at Zhang Tianlun, who was screaming inside before walking out. He didn't pity Zhang Tianlun, but if Zhang Tianlun really died in his dormitory room, he would probably have a hard time explaining himself. Without any evidence, the college would only believe that he had killed Zhang Tianlun. Regardless of Jing's and Wang Lu's expressions, Zhou Wen headed straight for the direction the earring had pointed. After leaving the school, Zhou Wen headed west according to the earring. Soon, he left the city and entered the suburbs. A forest appeared in front of Zhou Wen, and the heat from the truth listener earring grew stronger. It made Zhou Wen realize that he was approaching his target. After slowing down his speed, Zhou Wen carefully entered the forest. Truth listener earring's hearing was put to its greatest use. Everything within 100 meters around him projected into an image in his mind thanks to his hearing. Not long after entering the forest, the truth listener earring's ability allowed him to see a man standing in the forest. In front of him floated a blood-colored clown like Life's soul. Just as Zhang Tianlun had said, the man was wearing a shirt and suit with a unique hat on his head. He had a standard Caucasian look with blue eyes and carved facial features. His hair was a rare silver color. His skin was white to begin with, and with him looking a little pale, it looked like there was no blood in him. It was as if his face had been wiped with white powder. When Zhou Wen sensed Jock also sensed something. He frowned and looked in Zhou Wen's direction. At the same time, surprise flashed in his eyes. "Did the Bureau only send you here?" Zhou Wen gripped the bamboo blade tightly as he walked towards Jock. At the same time, he used Truth Listener's ability to constantly sweep his surroundings to make sure that there were no ambushes. "You are actually immune to the blood hex's control. Furthermore, you were able to find me." "Interesting." Jock stared at Zhou Wen as he sized him up. His eyes were shimmering as though he was looking at some interesting toy. "You won't find it interesting very soon." Zhou Wen had already confirmed that there weren't any ambushes around him. He instantly unsheathed his bamboo blade and appeared in front of Jock instantaneously, as though he had teleported. With transcendent flying immortal, he slashed at Jock's body with unparalleled speed. Jock clearly hadn't expected Zhou Wen to be that fast. Such strength was completely different from the information Shen Yuchai had given him. He was no ordinary student at the legendary stage. To be at the epic stage at such a young age, Jock's gaze froze slightly. Zhou Wen's saber was simply too fast. Clearly, Jock was weaker when it came to combat. Perhaps due to his long imprisonment and him not having fully recovered, he couldn't dodge in time. The black gas in his hand struck at the bamboo blade, but the black gas was directly sliced apart by the bamboo blade. Jock's palm was sliced off. The bamboo blade did not stop and slashed right into Jock's body. With a ripping sound, Zhou Wen realized that the bamboo blade had only sliced through Jock's jacket. He was gone. All that was left was the slightly trembling hand on the ground. Zhou Wen scanned his surroundings and pushed the truth listener earring to its limits. It reflected everything around him in his mind, but he didn't see any traces of Jock. Just as Zhou Wen was searching for Jock, he suddenly felt that something was amiss. An ant had crawled over at his feet. There were many ants in the forest, but this ant was somewhat odd. It had actually crawled straight in front of Zhou Wen's feet. Zhou Wen's heart stirred as he rapidly retreated. The ant's tiny body exploded like a bomb, blasting apart the ground and trees nearby, forming a huge crater that was more than 2 meters in diameter. Chapter 404, Stalemate. Zhou Wen flew back and touched a leaf that exploded like a grenade. Fortunately, he was wearing the mutated stone Kai armor. He charged out the instant the leaf exploded using ghost steps, suffering minimal damage from the explosion. Even so, the mutated stone Kai's armor was blackened from the blast. Zhou Wen was somewhat astonished. This person's ability was so bizarre that he could actually turn an ant and a leaf into his weapons. It was impossible to guard against. The entire forest was filled with insects, leaves, and vegetation. Zhou Wen didn't know which insects or leaves would become a bomb. Even the grass on the ground could become a landmine. Zhou Wen's body stood in midair. He used Truth Listener's hearing and his eyes to search for Jock. If he couldn't find him, no amount of strength was useful. However, Zhou Wen couldn't find any traces of Jock within the range of his senses. The entire forest only had the rustling sounds of leaves when the wind blew and the chirping of insects. Zhou Wen hovered in the air, using the God-fiend flying ability to prevent himself from touching anything. Then, he slowly moved in the air in search of Jock's possible hiding locations. When insects, birds, or leaves approached him, he would preemptively slice them apart. However, there weren't any further explosions. Zhou Wen sensed that Jock was still there. He hadn't left. The atmosphere in the woods felt very odd. Boom! Zhou Wen suddenly heard an explosion. However, the explosion didn't happen from his body. Instead, it happened above a large nearby tree. A bug exploded from the crown of a tree, scattering the leaves and branches everywhere. Even a wasp hive that was nestled in the tree flew out. Zhou Wen looked at the leaves and wasps that filled the sky as though he was watching a flurry of bombs. He only had one thought in mind. He absolutely couldn't let them touch him. With ghost steps and dragon gait flying immortal skill, Zhou Wen's figure rapidly flashed. The leaves and wasps that filled the sky failed to touch him. Boom! 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 Several trees were blasted apart as the sky filled with leaves and critters. Zhou Wen kept flying as his body twisted and turned, passing through the leaves like a ghost. He didn't touch the leaves, but the nearby leaves automatically exploded as though the entire forest had turned into an explosive warehouse. Anything that approached Zhou Wen could explode. Zhou Wen was caught off guard. All he could do was dash out of the forest and appear in the sky above. He looked down at the forest from above and observed everything that was happening. Truth Listener's power had already presented everything that was happening in the forest to his brain. No activity could escape his ears. Zhou Wen was certain that the person was still in the area, but he had used some unknown method to hide. As long as he carefully searched, he could definitely find him. This was the most terrifying opponent of the same level Zhou Wen had ever encountered since he began cultivating. Although he had fought others before, the strongest was the mutated stone Kai and Mei. No matter how powerful they weren't as diabolical and terrifying as this person. Previously, although Yan Zhen was also diabolical and terrifying, he wasn't good at combat. He was more like a crazy scientist, but this person was like a killing machine. Although his combat ability wasn't very strong, his abilities and means allowed him to kill someone without doing the dirty work. Zhou Wen moved back and forth in the air as he swept the nearby trees several times, but failed to find any traces of Jock. That bastard Xianxia. Is this his idea of an ordinary student? Jock cursed inwardly as well. Before he was locked up, he had seen many experts. Only a handful were as terrifying as Zhou Wen. He really couldn't believe that Zhou Wen was only a student. Jock didn't dare move. Although he had already made use of sorcery to disguise himself as a part of the forest, he could sense that showing any signs of abnormality would be detected by the aerial Zhou Wen. He didn't know how Zhou Wen did it, but he knew that he was using a method to constantly scan the forest situation. He had already felt something similar to a vision sweep over him several times. Jock closed his eyes, unwilling to let his gaze attract Zhou Wen's attention. However, his heart was burning with zeal. He loved killing people. The more powerful someone was, the more excited he became. At that moment, his blood was about to boil. He yearned to kill Zhou Wen immediately, to satisfy his inner desires. As for Xianxia's order to bring Zhou Wen back alive, Jock had completely forgotten about it. He was like a venomous snake that was seeking an opportunity. Once the prey showed weakness, he would deliver the most lethal strike. I don't believe that you can keep flying in the air. Jock waited patiently for the opportunity. One of them was in the air while the other was in the forest. They were in a stalemate. Zhou Wen couldn't find Jock's hiding spot, and it wasn't convenient for him to attack the woods. That would only give Jock a chance. As time passed, Jock realized that Zhou Wen didn't show any signs of descending despite him floating in midair. His desire to kill Zhou Wen intensified. Half a day passed, and the sky gradually darkened. Here's my chance. As he felt the sky grow darker, Jock knew that his chance was here. The night was his home ground. Although he couldn't find Jock's location, Zhou Wen continued waiting patiently. He was waiting for Jock to strike. As long as he made a move, it was impossible for him to perfectly conceal himself. This gave him a chance of finding his true body. Zhou Wen really didn't wish to let such a terrifying figure escape. Otherwise, he didn't know who would be the next victim. When the sun set and the moon silently crawled up, Zhou Wen continued floating in the air, waiting for Jock to reveal an opening. Suddenly, Zhou Wen felt an abnormality in the woods. A snake was rapidly darting under the leaves. It was normal for snakes to move around in the grass, but Zhou Wen found something was amiss with the snake. It seemed to have a clear goal. It was heading deep into the forest. Zhou Wen summoned his overlord sword and slashed out. The sword beam instantly tore through the forest and chopped down a tree. At the same time, he split the snake into two. Boom! The snake exploded, creating a huge pit in the vicinity. But on the other side, Jock's body emerged from a cave made of tree root that was the size of a fist. He dashed into the forest like a black shadow. However, the direction he headed in wasn't directed at the aerial Zhou Wen, nor was it deep in the woods. Zhou Wen quickly chased after him, but he saw Jock stop and reveal his snow-white teeth. He gave Zhou Wen a sinister smile. Chapter 405. It couldn't be him. While smiling sinisterly at Zhou Wen, Jock threw out a blood-colored dagger. However, the dagger wasn't thrown at Zhou Wen but at the ground. Zhou Wen immediately felt that something was amiss. He saw the blood-colored dagger fly over and immediately realized the problem. His shadow. Jock wasn't attacking him, but his shadow that had been projected by the moonlight. It was too late to dodge. He didn't have the time to think further. Zhou Wen's first reaction was to summon his inverse ancient sovereign life soul. The moment the inverse ancient sovereign life soul was summoned, the blood-colored dagger had nailed Zhou Wen's shadow. However, due to the inverse ancient sovereign's humanoid sun life soul appearing, the strong rays of light scattered his shadow. Most of the shadows were redirected in another direction. The shadow cast by the moon was almost invisibly faint. His heart palpitated slightly, but he didn't feel any damage. Like a ghost, Zhou Wen appeared in front of Jock and slashed his overlord sword and bamboo blade at him. Jock ducked, causing overlord sword to miss. However, bamboo blade slashed across his waist. Unfortunately, all that was sliced apart was Jock's clothes. He was nowhere to be seen. Boom! 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 Jock's clothes exploded in front of Zhou Wen, forcing him to retreat quickly. He retreated to the air once more and switched back to his god-fiend life providence. The atmosphere became tense again. Both of them knew that they had met a terrifying opponent. They waited for each other to make the first move, waiting for the moment the other party revealed a flaw. Zhou Wen wasn't in a rush. He didn't believe that the other party could keep hiding without eating or drinking. He flew into the air and grabbed a random piece of pancake and a can of Coke from the chaos bead. He even brought out some spring onion to go with the pancake. He ate while monitoring the situation in the forest. That punk is quite a figure. He's so tasteless. Is that even called food? Jock couldn't stand Zhou Wen's eating preferences, but he couldn't help but feel hungry. The fragrance of red wine and roasted meat surfaced in his mind. Jock gulped his saliva and forced himself to stop thinking. Just like that, he continued the stalemate with Zhou Wen while silently seeking out an opportunity. It was not feasible to use lunar shadow sorcery to control Zhou Wen, so Jock had to think of other solutions. As Jock endured the hardship below, Zhou Wen ate his fill in the sky. At first, he only filled his stomach. Later, he took out a vacuum-packed duck head and beer and sat down in the air, having a feast. This punk's taste is terrible. Is that what a human will eat? Jock wished he could throw the food that Zhou Wen was eating into a trash can, but he held back. Jock glanced at where Zhou Wen's shadow was, but he didn't dare head over. Although Zhou Wen appeared to be eating and drinking on the surface, he believed that Zhou Wen's sword beam would definitely slash at him the moment he made any abnormal movements. He was well aware of the prowess of Zhou Wen's sword beam. Although it was a little lacking compared to a few sword experts he knew, his sword beam held some special attributes to it. It had to be extraordinary, considering how he could sever his hand. After Zhou Wen had his fill, he said to the forest, "You won't be able to escape no matter what. Why don't you come out and have a chat? If you can provide enough information that satisfies me, I might spare your life." Jock continued lurking and ignored Zhou Wen, as though he hadn't heard him. "Your ability is so outstanding that I believe you have some status in the Bureau. Why risk your life?" Zhou Wen continued probing. However, no one answered him. Suddenly, Zhou Wen realized that someone was approaching the forest. The person was riding a gray wolf with an astonishing speed as he quickly approached the forest. Zhou Wen took a careful look and realized that it was Sheng. "Ah, Sheng, don't enter the forest." Zhou Wen shouted at the distant Sheng from midair, but it was already too late. The gray wolf Sheng was sitting on was too fast as it rushed into the forest. Boom! Boom! Zhou Wen immediately saw an explosion in the woods, as leaves exploded like a bomb. The blown-up trees snapped and mud flew. It was a mess. Zhou Wen was feeling worried when he saw Sheng rush out of the dust. Apart from his clothes being a little tattered and looking quite sorry, he didn't look injured. Sorcery Life Blast. Who could it be from the West District? Sheng glared at the woods and asked. No one answered. The forest was still silent, with only a few critters fleeing for their lives. Seeing no one reply, and Sheng looked at Zhou Wen and asked, "Young Master Wen, are you all right?" "I'm fine." "He refuses to come out. I've been waiting for him here so that he can't escape," Zhou Wen said. "You have fought him before, right?" "Describe his looks and abilities," said Sheng. Zhou Wen recounted Jock's looks and abilities to Sheng. While Sheng wore an extremely odd expression, he finally couldn't help but exclaim when he heard Zhou Wen mention the blood-colored clown life soul. Blood Hex Clown, could it be that psychopath from the West District? It can't be wrong. It's definitely Jock. Other than Jock, no one else has the ability to use Blood Hex Clown, Lunar Shadow Sorcery, and Life Blast. "He seems very famous," Zhou Wen asked. "Of course he's famous. A few decades ago, the name Jock sent shockwaves through the entire league. He committed more sins than Jing Daoxian. At least Jing Daoxian only killed people depending on his mood. But Jock kills people because he likes to kill people. An entire city's people were once cursed to death by him. Back then, many of the League's top-notch epic experts died in order to arrest him. He should be imprisoned. Could it be?" And Sheng immediately realized that the Bureau had released the psychopath, Jock, in order to capture Zhou Wen. However, upon further thought, Sheng felt that something was amiss. He felt that it couldn't be Jock. If it was Jock, how could he have been stopped by Zhou Wen? The Bureau is truly unscrupulous. To think they would dare release a devil like Jock just to capture me. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. If not for his special abilities and with the help of a mythical companion beast, he would have died at Jock's hands. In fact, Zhou Wen should be glad that he encountered Jock, who had been imprisoned for decades. Most of his companion beasts had died in battle before his imprisonment. While fighting Zhou Wen, he mainly relied on the perfect blood hex life soul and primordial energy skills. If his previous companion beasts were present, he would have been even more terrifying. Chapter 406, Blood Hex. Jock lurked in the grass, alarmed. He had been imprisoned for more than 20 years. Were young adults these days so powerful? Back in his day, he could kill young adults in their 20s, such as Sheng, without wasting too much effort. However, between the two young adults that he met today, Zhou Wen had forced him to hide in the darkness, while Sheng, who appeared a little older, maybe in his mid-20s, but definitely not in his 30s, had managed to escape the life blast that he had set up. This made him suspect that the League had experienced an explosive growth over the past few decades. However, from his journey here, he believed that humans might have improved, but they shouldn't be that powerful. Jock lived up to his name. The thought of escaping didn't arise just because of Zhou Wen and Sheng's strength. The killing intent in his heart burned even more. If my previous companion beasts were still around, killing them would be much simpler. Unfortunately, I'll have to think of another solution now. Jock's mind raced as he thought about how to kill Zhou Wen and Sheng. He had no intention of escaping. Perhaps even Shen Yuchai wouldn't have expected that a great devil like Jock would have to go through so much difficulty to capture a university student. Back when Jock was pursued by the Bureau, and in what seemed like an inescapable net, he had even killed more than 20 epic inspectors. Jock even infiltrated Holy City while being pursued, a showcase of his boldness. He abducted the son of the previous Director General of the Special Inspector Bureau and killed him in front of the experts chasing him. Xianxia had made a deal with Jock because he wanted to put things right once and for all. He hoped that Jock could capture Zhou Wen without anyone noticing, but little did he expect Jock to end up in a predicament. He swept his glance across the forest, and a vicious glint flashed across Jock's eyes as he exploded the life blast he had set up. Rumble! The leaves exploded in the forest like bombs. In a region spanning a few hundred meters, there were explosive booms and destroyed trees everywhere. A large group of birds and wild beasts fled in all directions, and the forest was thrown into pandemonium. No good. He wants to escape. Truth Listener's range was only about 100 meters. The explosions had already exceeded the distance that Truth Listener could monitor. There were all sorts of creatures fleeing in the forest. If Jock were to be among them, it would be impossible to find him. Zhou Wen had no choice but to fly in the sky and constantly search with Truth Listener's powers, hoping to find something abnormal. Suddenly, Zhou Wen saw a black shadow escape rapidly under the moonlight. Although the moonlight was bright, there were trees sheltering the area. Shadows covered the area below, as the black shadow rapidly slunk through the shadows. Zhou Wen's Truth Listener couldn't hear it. It just so happened that his eyes accidentally swept across the spot where the moonlight scattered, allowing him to see it by chance. Zhou Wen immediately recalled that the other party had previously wanted to pin his shadow. Clearly, he was proficient in shadow techniques, and now he was escaping using shadows. It would be difficult to find him if he escaped successfully. There was still a chance of finding his true body next time, but even so, Zhou Wen himself wasn't confident. With no mercy in his heart, Zhou Wen switched to the ancient sovereign life soul, letting it fuse with him. His entire body emitted a glow as he rushed into the forest like a god of light, in pursuit of the shadow. Don't chase after him. And Sheng loudly warned Zhou Wen, but he saw Zhou Wen charge in without stopping. All he could do was rush in as well. The ancient sovereign life soul brought Zhou Wen powerful vital essence, one that emitted light and heat as he lit up the dark forest. Tree leaves fell on Zhou Wen. With one hand holding the Overlord sword and the other holding the bamboo blade, he slashed out a sword and saber beam, splitting all the leaves that came close to him. However, when he stepped onto the grass on the ground, the grass suddenly exploded. Thankfully, Zhou Wen was wearing the mutated stone Kai armor. Resisting the blast, he leaped up and tapped his feet on the trunk before continuing his pursuit of the shadow. Zhou Wen didn't dare land on the ground as he used the trees to engage in pursuit. His glow illuminated the forest. Under the brilliance, he could clearly see a shadow moving quickly on the ground without making a single sound. Truth Listener couldn't hear it either. He slashed out Fangwheel's sword flash with the Overlord sword, but the shadow rapidly flashed. It dodged the sword beam and circled around in a bid to escape in another direction. Zhou Wen chased the shadow as he kept slashing out sword beams, but the shadow dodged Zhou Wen's sword beams again and again. It was like a ghost, making Zhou Wen almost believe that it was really just a shadow. However, seeing that the shadow was constantly dodging the sword light, and that it wouldn't fade under the light he emitted, he knew that it wasn't a real shadow. To be able to use a shadow escape technique to such a degree, and use a large area of life blast, could this person really be Jock? And Sheng rushed into the forest and stood on a tree branch. When he saw Zhou Wen chasing the shadow, he was alarmed and puzzled. He had heard many legends about Jock in the past. All the different kinds of evil and powerful primordial energy skills at his disposal, made him extremely unpredictable. He was capable of killing people in an invisible manner. This legendary person was actually suppressed by Zhou Wen, forcing him to reevaluate Zhou Wen's strength. Young Master Wen might end up being a second overseer in the future, thought Xianxia. He had watched Zhou Wen develop his strength, but even he was astonished at such a growth rate. Just as Zhou Wen cornered the shadow with nowhere for it to escape, Jock revealed his body. Jock stood there, his blood hex clown life soul in front of him as he withstood the fang-wheel sword flash with both hands. Boom! The blood hex clown and Jock behind it were sent flying as they slammed into an old tree. Blood immediately spurted out from Jock's mouth. Zhou Wen wasn't willing to give him a chance. The moment his feet landed on the ground, he exerted strength with all his might, ready to charge forward and kill Jock on the spot. However, just as his foot touched the ground, he felt his ankle tighten. A terrifying force tugged at him, almost causing him to fall to the ground. Zhou Wen looked down and realized that the Jock's severed hand was grabbing his ankle. Sanguine aura surged from the severed hand-arm as it clutched tightly at his ankle. The sanguine aura also surged up and quickly spread across his leg, as though a blood-patterned talisman had been drawn on the stone armor. No good. And Sheng wanted to rush over, but when he saw Zhou Wen's expression and gaze, instead of rushing over immediately, he stopped in his tracks. And Sheng had seen similar looks and expressions many times. It was the look and expression that a particular overseer he knew well had when it was time to reel in the net he had carefully arranged. Jock suppressed the excitement in his heart as he stood up. He licked the blood on his lips and looked at Zhou Wen with burning eyes. You should feel honored to be the first person I, Jock, have killed in 27 years. Chapter 407, Slaying. Following Jock's words, the blood hex clown beside him emitted blood-colored light. The blood hex clown levitated, its hands seemingly praying to Buddha while it seemed to chant something. As the chanting sounded, the blood hex clown's sanguine halo intensified. It actually turned into blood-colored incantations that revolved around its body. As for the palm gripping Zhou Wen's ankle, it exploded from the blood hex clown's blood hex. The strange blood-colored incantation patterns crept onto Zhou Wen's stone armor, as though they were trying to wrap him in a net formed of blood-colored incantations. In that case, you should feel more honored than me, Zhou Wen said to Jock without showing any signs of panic, despite being trapped by the blood incantation. Jock felt a little uneasy as he stared at Zhou Wen and asked, "Why?" "It's because you will be killed by me. You have lived for so many years. This should be the first time you have been killed, right?" Zhou Wen said. "Is that so? Then I'm really looking forward to it." Jock felt that something was amiss, but with the arrow already strung, he had to release it. However, the unease made him activate it ahead of time. He didn't wait for the blood hex clown to finish the incantation. A red glow flashed from the blood hex clown's body, as it flashed like police sirens. The blood hex clown's body suddenly exploded the next second. With the self-detonation of the blood hex clown, the blood incantation on Zhou Wen's body and the severed hand exploded. It was an internecine curse. Bang! A blood-colored blast of light rose from Zhou Wen's body, as everything almost 20 meters in diameter was destroyed by it. Impossible! Jock stared at the empty area behind the blood explosion and saw Zhou Wen still flowing in holy light. He stood there like a god of light, completely unharmed. Jock completely couldn't believe his eyes. It was the evil self-destruct skill that the blood hex clown had acquired only after it advanced to a perfect body. The power of its self-detonation was enough to injure even a mythical creature. However, it would take a long time before the blood hex clown life soul would recover from its self-destruction. Jock seldom used it even before he was locked up. Being cornered today, he used this power, but he never expected that it would fail to injure Zhou Wen at all. How could he remain composed? However, he was ultimately a person with an iron will. When he realized that something was wrong, he phased away into a shadow in a bid to escape without any hesitation. "Are you done playing? It's my turn now, right?" With the Overlord's sword in hand, Zhou Wen's sun-like radiance gradually vanished. It was replaced by a mysterious aura. Unlike the vital radiance from before, Zhou Wen didn't leak any primordial energy as he seemed to meld into the void. Double life souls. And Sheng was pleasantly surprised. Double life souls were extremely rare. This was because primordial energy arts could easily produce conflicts. Typically, an ordinary person could only cultivate one. Otherwise, it was very possible that the conflict between primordial energy arts would cause damage to the body, especially when advancing. Such sudden conflicting impulses happened suddenly. It was especially so when life providences between the primordial energy arts clashed. Death was almost certain. Needless to say, any conflict in life souls would probably lead to a situation worse than death. And Sheng knew a person who cultivated dual primordial energy arts and condensed two life souls. That person had peerless talent, and with immense perseverance, he condensed two life souls of two different primordial energy arts. He originally thought that he was fine, but afterward, he realized that he could only control his body in the day. Once he fell asleep, his life soul would occupy his body and do many crazy things that he didn't even know about. Eventually, he went mad and was sent to a mental hospital. The fact that Zhou Wen was able to have double life souls proved that his talent was indeed as excellent as the former principal had said. However, and Sheng was worried that the double life souls would harm Zhou Wen. Having double life souls exacerbated Zhou Wen's advancement to the mythical stage. There was already no clear advancement path, but now he had added an obstacle for himself. This made Sheng very worried. The surprise was both worrisome and pleasant. Zhou Wen switched his life providence to God Fiend, and the Lost Country ring appeared on his finger. Zhou Wen remained suspended in midair as he looked at the escaping Jock in shadow form, having no intention of pursuing him. All he did was touch the Lost Country ring on his finger. A strange glint flashed in the eyes of the ring's ghost face. It was as if a supernatural being had opened its eyes. Furthermore, the light gradually spread outwards, causing the originally simple, ancient ring to have incantations engraved on it. Boom! 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 Jock fled in a frenzy, but when he charged through the woods and hit the sword marks that Zhou Wen had delivered previously, sword flashes burst out from the sword marks. Jock ran so quickly and anxiously that he repeatedly triggered countless sword marks. Rays of sword flashes stabbed into his body and exploded, instantly blasting Jock out of his shadow form. Covered in blood, Jock suffered wounds everywhere thanks to the sword flashes. He fell to the ground, coughing blood non-stop. Jock stared at Zhou Wen and swallowed a mouthful of blood. He asked in a hoarse voice, "You know how hex spells as well?" "No, but I have to thank you for giving me some inspiration. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have thought of using my life soul in this manner." Zhou Wen wasn't lying. Jock's combat method inspired Zhou Wen. It allowed him to combine the spatial and dimensional knowledge he had acquired recently, and finally figured out a way to use the lost country. It wasn't as simple and crude as using it for teleportation. Lost Country's ability to change spatial trajectories wasn't limited to just teleportation. Jock looked at Zhou Wen with a complicated expression. Although he was a genius, he had only just advanced to the legendary stage at Zhou Wen's age. He was far inferior to the present Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen didn't hesitate at all as he slashed out the demonic astral wheel. He planned on slaying the heavily injured Jock, unwilling to give him any chance. Jock was no longer able to dodge, but there was no trace of fear on his face. Instead, his eyes were scorching hot. "This is amazing. This world is amazing. There should be plenty of strong fellows like you among humans, right?" "It's really thrilling," Jock muttered to himself in fervor. Zhou Wen ignored him as he cleaved apart Jock's body with the Overlord's sword. Fresh blood spewed out as Jock was split into two on the spot. However, when Jock's body landed, Zhou Wen was shocked to see it transform into a palm-sized doll that had been sliced into two. The doll even spoke, despite being sliced in half. "Zhou Wen, you really excite me. To me, you're a top-notch food ingredient. I'll definitely kill you and make your flesh into a top-notch delicacy. Before that, please do protect your body and prevent anyone from tainting this priceless ingredient." Chapter 408, and Sheng's Suggestion. In a cave, a pale-faced Jock spat out a mouthful of blood. His face flushed abnormally red. He had used a puppet avatar hex to battle Zhou Wen. Although the one killed was only a puppet avatar and not his main body, the death of his avatar dealt him some severe injuries. Furthermore, the blood hex clown life soul had really self-destructed. It was a very serious blow to him. "Although I can't wait to eat delicacies, I still need to get some companion beasts first. Otherwise, I might really not be his match." Jock wiped the blood from his mouth as he wondered how he could obtain a companion beast. He naturally did not fancy typical companion beasts. With his present situation, he needed plenty of time to obtain high-level companion beasts. "Since those people from the League want me to do their bidding, they should pay for it." A look of mockery flashed in Jock's eyes. If he had considered taking Zhou Wen to the Bureau to exchange for true freedom, he no longer had that thought after today's battle. Jock walked out of the cave and headed for Luoyang City. He didn't have any communication devices like phones on him, so he needed to find a place to contact Shen Yuchai. He didn't plan on telling Shen Yuchai what happened today. Failure would only make them think that he was incompetent. Jock planned on telling Shen Yuchai that the En family was protecting Zhou Wen. He needed some companion beasts to bring him back. Others might only need a companion egg, but Jock was different. It would be fine even if it was a companion beast with an owner. He believed that Shen Yuchai wouldn't reject his request. After entering Luoyang City, Jock went to a shop to buy a phone and contacted Shen Yuchai. As he expected, although Shen Yuchai was a little reluctant, he still agreed to his request. He told him to wait 2 days for the companion beasts to arrive. After the call, he wanted to throw the phone into the trash can, but he realized that there were several different types of bins. He didn't know what the different labels meant, so he casually threw it into one of them. "Sir, you're mistaken. You just threw a phone, right? That's recyclable. You should place it in the bin for recyclable waste, a young girl said to Jock when she walked over. Jock looked at the girl coldly. When the girl and Jock looked at each other, she was stunned. Then, as if she had lost her soul, she walked toward him. Jock turned and walked into a remote area with the girl following in tow. She had no idea what she was doing. In an empty alley, Jock looked at the girl and reached his hand out towards her neck. However, before his fingers could touch it, he stopped. There was a strange expression on his face. Darn it! All I can think of right now is that top-notch delicious ingredient. How can I eat such trash? Jock looked at the girl with disgust before gritting his teeth and turning to leave. Not long after Jock left, the girl woke up and looked around blankly. She didn't know why she was here, nor did she know that she had just escaped a calamity. Zhou Wen scanned the entire forest and didn't discover any aura, nor did he sense anything. He was certain that Jock's real body wasn't here. I failed to kill him despite going through all that trouble, Zhou Wen sighed. He really wanted to kill Jock. He was too terrifying. And Sheng walked over and said with a smile, "You're just a student, yet you managed to force Jock to such a state. I'm afraid no one will believe you if you tell others. You should be proud of yourself. What's there to sigh about? Don't joke around. If I can't kill him this time, I don't know what terrifying means he will use to deal with the people around me next time," Zhou Wen said. And Sheng nodded and said, "A devil like Jock will definitely not let this matter rest. It's indeed not appropriate for you to stay in school. You're fine on your own. With your capabilities, it won't be easy for Jock to touch you, but it's hard to say for the people around you." Zhou Wen felt a headache over this. He wasn't afraid for himself, but if the next time the person standing in front of him was either Lai Xuan or Wang Lu, Zhou Wen couldn't imagine how he would feel if they suddenly exploded and splattered blood all over him. "Young Master Wen, if you don't want to go to the An family, I have a suggestion. You can prevent the people around you from being hurt by Jock and also stay safe," and Sheng said with narrowed eyes. "What's the suggestion?" Zhou Wen asked. "Recently, Chess Mountain hasn't been peaceful. There are frequent signs of breakout creatures. Deputy Governor Qin is building a special unit to guard Chess Mountain. Those people are not part of the army. Most of them are mercenary hunters or cultivators who have committed a crime. If you are interested, you can join this unit. Firstly, you can contribute to guarding Chess Mountain. Secondly, you can also avoid injury to the people around you. Thirdly, there are many experts in the camp, so it won't be easy for Jock to touch you," and Sheng said. "Aren't you afraid that I would be killed by a breakout creature at Chess Mountain?" Zhou Wen looked at Sheng gloomily. "I really didn't dare to recommend you in the past. But after watching your battle with Jock, I don't think it makes a difference," and Sheng said. "How can it not make a difference?" Zhou Wen felt that what Sheng said made no sense. There was naturally no danger if he didn't go. And Sheng smiled and said, "With your present strength, if you were killed, then Chess Mountain's encampment would definitely be lost. So even if you don't go to Chess Mountain, the breakout creatures inside will still rush to Luoyang City. When the time comes, won't you still have to fight them? So what difference does it make? Why do I have to fight them? Can't I run?" Zhou Wen curled his lips. "You can also run on Chess Mountain. Don't worry. You aren't a regular soldier. Just run. You won't be considered a deserter," and Sheng said with a smile. Zhou Wen was hesitant. Life on campus was comfortable. If possible, he really didn't want to go to a dangerous place like Chess Mountain. And Sheng noticed Zhou Wen's hesitation and continued, "Tell me, if Luoyang City really falls in the future, it will definitely be the doing of dimensional creatures in Chess Mountain. If I were you, I would head to Chess Mountain to take a look. At least I would understand the creatures there ahead of time and know how to deal with them. It's much better than others who aren't prepared." "Is Chess Mountain that terrifying?" Zhou Wen asked in puzzlement when he saw how serious Sheng was. "According to our research, the ruins of the ancient Jayaj city might be in Chess Mountain. Don't you think it's terrifying?" And Sheng said sternly. Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback. In the history of the East District, there were two most famous battles between deities, monsters, immortals, saints, and humans. One was the battle between the Yellow Emperor and Qiyu. The other was the famous Battle of Mu. The famous novel, Investiture of the Gods, had depicted this very battle. Chapter 409, Blood River. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and felt that going to Chess Mountain didn't seem like a bad idea. He could also seek out the tiny palm symbol and try to download Chess Mountain. Just as Sheng had said, the more he knew about dimensional creatures, the higher the chances of him being able to survive after a large-scale breakout. While the dimensional creatures in Chess Mountain had yet to rush out en masse, this was the best chance to go to Chess Mountain. The situation would only worsen in the future, so it wouldn't be easy to head over again. Just treat it as going on a vacation and touring the area. It will not be too late to return to campus after Jock's matter is resolved," and Sheng said. "All right. When do we set off?" Zhou Wen asked. "To prevent any delays, let's do it now." And Sheng looked at Zhou Wen and said, "Don't tell me you still wish to return to the school and inform your schoolmates. Wouldn't that be equivalent to telling Jock who matters to you so that he can threaten you with them?" Zhou Wen thought for a moment and agreed with him. He gave up on his plans to return to the school and followed Sheng to Chess Mountain. Chess Mountain was not far from Luoyang City, so it was not long before Zhou Wen arrived at the encampment with Sheng. As the situation at Chess Mountain was getting worse, Qin Wufu had been transferred here and was temporarily in charge of guarding Chess Mountain. After Sheng introduced Zhou Wen to Qin Wufu sized up Zhou Wen strangely and said, "Adjutant An, are you sure you want Zhou Wen to join the new unit?" "Yes," and Sheng answered affirmatively. "It's not impossible, but you should know the unit's situation. The members are quite rowdy." Qin Wufu knew Zhou Wen and knew his relationship with the Yin family. That was why he was being tactful. Otherwise, he would have rejected Zhou Wen joining the unit. After all, Zhou Wen was only a student. The unit he had recently established was used to guard Chess Mountain, so all the members were at the epic stage. And Sheng noticed Qin Wufu's concerns, so he said, "You know Zhou Wen's situation as well. The Bureau has been looking for trouble with him over Wang Minjuan's matter, so Madam got him here mainly because she wants you to take care of him. Actually, it's just for a few days. Madam has other plans, so he will be sent back very soon." Qin Wufu felt a headache coming on. Defending Chess Mountain was enough to give him a headache. Now, he had to take care of some nepotic fellow like Zhou Wen. However, Qin Wufu had to take into consideration Aoyang Lan and reluctantly agreed to accept Zhou Wen. However, he rejected Zhou Wen's entry into the unit and told him to stay put for a few days. There was no need for him to do anything. Zhou Wen didn't mind. He had only planned on staying temporarily for a few days, returning once he resolved his jock problem. Therefore, Zhou Wen stayed at Chess Mountain's encampment. As he didn't have a job scope and wasn't a soldier, he didn't need to be on duty. No one cared about him, so it suited Zhou Wen's intentions. On the day Zhou Wen went to the Chess Mountain encampment, he headed out to take a look. There was fog in the direction of Chess Mountain, so he couldn't see anything clearly. It was as though a beast trapped in fog had opened its mouth. The river flowing out of Chess Mountain was as red as blood. And Sheng told him that it had started a few months ago. Which military unit are you from? Why are you wandering around here? As Zhou Wen walked slowly along the riverbank in search of the tiny palm symbol, an officer leading a patrol stopped him. Zhou Wen showed his identification card that Qin Wufu had given him. The officer took it and immediately felt respect for him. After a military salute, he handed the identification documents to Zhou Wen. So it's Dr. Little Zhu. What are you doing here? The job title Qin Wufu gave him was an intern doctor. Although he was only an intern doctor, doctors were highly respected in the military. No one could guarantee that they wouldn't be injured on the battlefield. They would definitely need doctors to help them. Most people who could become military doctors had the ability to heal. This ability was extremely rare and precious on the battlefield. Even an intern doctor was a rare species. This officer didn't know that Zhou Wen wasn't even an intern doctor. His identity was something Qin Wufu had temporarily given to him in order to make it easier for him to stay in the military camp. I just came to the river to take a look, Zhou Wen said casually. When the officer heard Zhou Wen, he imagined that Zhou Wen was investigating and collecting samples, so he sighed and said, Dr. Little Zhu, you have to investigate carefully. There's indeed a problem with the river's water. Recently, many of our soldiers have suffered red rashes. The more frequently they patrol the river, the worse the rashes become. Although they don't deal any major harm and one can recover after 2 days from staying away from the river, the itch is really tremendous. It's not like we can avoid patrolling. Although Zhou Wen wasn't a true doctor, he knew some basic knowledge. He asked casually, have you tried using a filtered face mask? We've tried. It's completely useless. Even protective suits have been worn. It's still useless. As long as we get near this river, the rashes will still break out, the officer said. Zhou Wen really didn't know much. Just as he was thinking of how to send them away and continue his search for the tiny palm symbol, he saw a soldier running over from the mountain pass, panting. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be guarding the sentry post? The officer asked immediately when he saw the soldier. Liu Gui. He suddenly fainted. I can't wake him up no matter what I do. He has rashes all over him, the soldier said as he panted heavily. What? Quick, find a doctor. Dr. Little Zhu is here. Follow us quickly. We need to take a look. The officer recalled that Zhou Wen was an intern doctor, so he pulled him towards the mountain pass. Zhou Wen's face turned livid. He was an imposter. How could he know any medical skills? It would be a wonder if he could figure out anything. However, he hadn't denied his identity as a doctor, so it wasn't appropriate for him to say anything now. He felt that he wouldn't say anything once he came to the soldier. He would immediately direct them to send the soldier to the medical team and be done with it. The sentry post was the closest outpost to Chess Mountain. Usually, There would be 2 soldiers standing guard and monitoring the situation nearby. When Zhou Wen arrived at the sentry post, he realized that this was indeed close to the Chess Mountains Pass. He could vaguely see the mountain pass's cliff. There was a soldier lying in the sentry post. Zhou Wen was shocked when he saw his face. His face was covered in rashes, and parts were covered in blood. What's going on? Why are his rashes so serious? The officer glared at another soldier and asked. The soldier didn't dare hide anything as he revealed the truth. Originally, the rule was to take turns every 3 days, spending a maximum of 3 days per rotation. However, Liu Gui had some matters to attend to and had to swap shifts with his other comrades. Including today, he has been here for 7 days. Chapter 410, Imposter Doctor. The unit has made it clear that we can only stand guard for a maximum of 3 days. Furthermore, we are to stay away from the river for 3 subsequent days. He actually stayed here for 7 days. Does he have a death wish? The officer looked at Zhou Wen as he spoke. The soldier said with a bitter smile. Liu Gui said that he had a tenacious body and wasn't afraid. He was really fine in the beginning. He didn't get any rashes after manning it for 5 days like us. On the 6th day, he only had a tiny bout of rashes, but who knew that his rashes would suddenly break out today? His entire body is covered in rashes, and they are festering. Before I left, it wasn't as serious. Dr. Little Zhu, what do we do? The officer asked Zhou Wen. What else can we do? Send him back to the medical team quickly. Zhou Wen was just about to say that when he saw the soldier's body convulse. Wherever his skin was exposed, the red rashes rapidly decayed and his hands festered. It was unknown if the pain had jolted him awake. He began reaching out and clawing his face. With one swipe, his skin was torn, leaving behind a few marks on his face. His cheekbones could be seen, making him look extremely frightening. However, the soldier did not care and continued to claw himself with all his might. His face was mangled in a few scratches, but he refused to stop and continued to claw at it with all his might. Hold him down, the officer immediately ordered. The soldiers rushed forward and pressed his hand down to stop him from grabbing his face. It was unknown if Liu Gui was conscious or not. He didn't say a word as he struggled with all his might to claw his face. Liu Gui, do you have a death wish? The officer berated him loudly, but Liu Gui acted as though he didn't hear anything. He struggled with all his might, his feet kicking hard as he rubbed his body across the ground. After he kicked off his boots and socks, people realized that his feet were covered in rashes. Suddenly, Liu Gui stopped struggling and blood seeped out from his mouth. He looked like he was about to die. Dr. Little Zhu, what should we do? Hurry up and save old Liu. A soldier who was on good terms with Liu Gui nearly cried. Zhou Wen thought to himself, I'm not a real doctor. How would I know? He wanted them to send him to the medical team, but it was already too late by the looks of it. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and felt that this red rash could also be a poison. Perhaps Dr. Darkness's fight poison with poison would be useful. By now, Zhou Wen could only attempt a Hail Mary. He would rather have the soldier die in his hands than watch him die. Without any hesitation, he summoned Dr. Darkness to appear in companion form, and used fight poison with poison as a syringe appeared in his hand. Hold him down properly. Don't let him move, Zhou Wen said to the soldiers. After all, he was not a real doctor. Administering injections was not his forte. Fortunately, if it was only administering a tranquilizer, he could still do it. The few soldiers held Liu Gui down tightly as Zhou Wen stabbed the syringe in and slightly pushed the plunger, injecting bits of poison into Lin Gui's body before stopping to watch his reaction. Dr. Darkness's poison was extremely potent. He reacted quickly after being injected with it. The blood that flowed out of Liu Gui's mouth had clearly decreased, but Zhou Wen didn't know if it was because he was about to die or if fight poison with poison was showing its effect. After waiting for a while longer, Liu Gui's rashes stopped festering. Liu Gui's convulsions also lessened in intensity. Seeing that the poison was effective, Zhou Wen injected a little more. Liu Gui's body convulsed even more, but the rashes on his body were dissipating. Zhou Wen knew that it was truly effective. It was normal for Liu Gui's body to convulse. It was unknown what kind of poison Dr. Darkness used, but the pain from having it injected into the body was something Zhou Wen had experienced before. It wasn't something an ordinary person could tolerate. However, this also meant that Liu Gui's condition was improving. Previously, he couldn't feel any pain. Zhou Wen didn't dare to inject too much poison. Seeing the improvement, he put away the syringe and used Dr. Darkness's light of penetration to look inside Liu Gui's body. He didn't discover any problems, nor did he discover what the source of the rashes was. Duh! It hurts. Liu Gui's eyes widened as he screamed in pain. His body struggled even harder. Dr. Little Zhu, what's going on? The officer and several soldiers looked at Zhou Wen, unsure of what was happening. His condition has improved. He's probably saved, but it's impossible to carry out any of the subsequent treatment here. Quickly send him to the medical team, Zhou Wen said. The officer hurriedly summoned an ox-shaped companion beast, which carried Liu Gui back to the encampment. Dr. Little Zhu, are you heading back with us? The officer asked Zhou Wen. I still have something on. I still have to take a look by the river. Go ahead. Zhou Wen didn't have any medical skills. It was useless even if he followed. However, since fight poison with poison had been effective in saving Liu Gui's life, the extent of his recovery depended on the true doctors. The officer was in a hurry to bring Liu Gui back, so he did not speak further and rushed back to the encampment. Zhou Wen continued walking in the direction of Chess Mountain, hoping to find the palm symbol. He didn't dare get too close to the Chess Mountain's mountain pass. The place was extremely unstable, and dimensional creatures could rush out at any time. Therefore, he only searched in the vicinity. However, there were no stone monuments or any human buildings by the river. There was no tiny palm symbol. As he approached Chess Mountain, the rocks in the mountain pass could be seen clearly. The rock on Chess Mountain was very unique. Most of it was black, but there were some rocks that were white in color. The contrast was obvious, as if some white lines had been drawn on black cloth. The blood-colored river flowed out from the mouth of the mountain. If the color was any darker, it would really resemble blood. There's no tiny palm symbol. Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed as he looked in the direction of Chess Mountain, afraid to head forward. A warning sign had already been erected in front of him, indicating that it would be dangerous to head any further. Zhou Wen held the mysterious phone and scanned the surroundings with the camera function. There wasn't a vibrational notification on his phone either. He didn't know if there really wasn't a tiny palm symbol, or if his mysterious phone couldn't detect anything due to the proximity gap. I'll continue walking. If the mountain pass's wall doesn't have it, I'll return. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment, before deciding to take a walk forward to see if there was anything on the mountain pass's walls. With his present strength, as long as he didn't encounter a mythical creature, there shouldn't be too much danger. However, Zhou Wen was still very careful and didn't dare let his guard down. Strength wasn't absolute, and he wasn't omnipotent. If he encountered a dimensional creature, he couldn't subdue. Even if he were of the same level or higher, it could still take his life. Chapter 411. The Little Flower on the Mountain. Lu Su was reading some documents for her research when she suddenly received an emergency notice. She rushed over to take a look at the soldier's condition and could not help but frown. What happened to him? Dr. Liu Gui violated the rules. He stationed himself at the sentry post for 7 days and turned into this, the officer said. He stationed himself at the sentry post for 7 days straight. Does he not want his life anymore? Lu Su was slightly taken aback when she heard that. She went forward to carefully observe Liu Gui's injuries and asked in disbelief. He must have scratched himself, right? There's indeed some festering, but the more she looked at it, the stranger she found it. Liu Gui's injuries seemed to have signs of rashes, but it was obvious that the rashes were no longer festering and there were signs of recovery. The situation wouldn't have been so if the rashes had really acted up. We happened to meet Dr. Little Zhu earlier on. Dr. Zhu injected some medicine into Liu Gui at the sentry post, improving his condition a little. He's much better now. The officer explained everything that had happened earlier. Dr. Little Zhu. Which Dr. Little Zhu? Lu Su found it unbelievable. After all her research, she had ultimately failed to find a way to treat the rashes. Once it acted up, death was a certainty. According to what they said, Liu Gui had been there for 7 days without dying. That was testimony to his luck. The situation back then must have been the rashes acting up, quickly turning him into a pool of blood. According to their description, Liu Gui should already be a dead person. Even if she, Lu Su, had been present, there was no way she could have saved Liu Gui. However, the doctor they were talking about had only given 1 injection to significantly improve Liu Gui. She could no longer see any signs of the rashes, so she found it unbelievable. It's Dr. Zhou Wen. His identification document says that he's an intern, the officer replied. Lu Su ran through all the medical team's personnel through her mind, but they did not have such an intern doctor. There were indeed a few new interns this year, but none of them had the Zhou surname. Take him in for a checkup now. Lu Su let Liu Gui in. Liu Gui could already walk on his own, but his facial injuries were rather serious. Lu Su checked Liu Gui and treated his wounds. But this only served to surprise her more. Liu Gui's entire body was covered in festering rashes, which meant that the breakout was very severe. Liu Gui and company were probably not lying, but the rashes did not show any continual signs of decay. Instead, they were slowly improving. After Lu Su's checkup, Liu Gui had almost fully recovered from his rashes. Even if he didn't undergo any more treatment, he would recover in a few days. However, he needed to be treated for those festering wounds, or his entire body would be covered with scars. Instead, the self-inflicted wounds were more serious. It would probably take him quite some time to treat them. Are you sure that the intern doctor you met is named Zhou Wen? Lu Su asked again. The officer answered with certainty. "It's Dr. Zhou Wen, all right. I made sure." "That's strange." Lu Su really wanted to meet Zhou Wen and ask him what he had injected into Liu Gui, but she couldn't recall having such a person in the medical team. When she returned to her office, Lu Su found the medical team's case files and saw that none of the intern doctors were named Zhou Wen. None of them had the Zhou surname. How strange. Could it be that they were really lucky to meet a deity? Lu Su was secretly puzzled. Zhou Wen was less than 200 meters from Chess Mountain's mountain pass. With his eyesight, he was able to see if there were any patterns on the mountain wall, so he didn't head forward again. Zhou Wen's gaze constantly sized up the mountain wall, and after a while, he failed to find the tiny palm symbol. Instead, he saw a strange flower. The flower was growing on the wall of Chess Mountain and was only about 10 centimeters tall. The leaves were black, but the flowers were white. The contrasting colors resembled the rock colors of Chess Mountain. The small flower grew alone on the stone wall. There were no plants for hundreds of meters. There must be something wrong with things that happen out of the ordinary. Zhou Wen remembered that he had been taught in school that there was no lack of terrifying plants in dimensional zones. Perhaps the flower in front of him was a terrifying plant-type dimensional creature. Therefore, Zhou Wen's nerves immediately tensed up when he saw the flower. It wasn't because he was excited, but because he was wary. Plant-type powers were often rather special. Many animal-type dimensional creatures relied on brute force to achieve victory, but that wasn't something Zhou Wen was afraid of. However, most plant-type dimensional creatures didn't achieve victory through brute force. Using the knowledge he learned from school, he knew there were many flower-type dimensional creatures that killed with pollen. There were also some fungoid dimensional creatures that could give off tiny spores that could barely be seen with the naked eye. Through the respiratory tract or the gullet, or even pores, they could enter the body and parasitize humans. They treated the human body as nutrients and sucked the human to their deaths. Zhou Wen wore the truth listener earring and listened to the flow of the air, but he didn't find any tiny particles swirling over from the side of the flower. Only then did he feel relieved. Although he didn't know if the flower was a plant-type dimensional creature, Zhou Wen decided to stay far from it. There was nothing wrong with being careful. He didn't want to die here for no reason. He turned around and walked in another direction, hoping to stay away from the flower. However, just as Zhou Wen walked a few steps, he heard a voice from the flower. "Can you hear me?" It was a woman's voice. Although the sun hadn't set and the sky wasn't too dark, Zhou Wen was still alarmed. He turned to look at the direction of the voice and saw that there was neither human nor dimensional creature. There was only the flower growing on the mountain wall. "Can you hear me?" The flower sounded again. Strangely, the flower turned around and faced Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen shut his mouth and stared at the flower, but he slowly retreated. Zhou Wen didn't want to know why the strange flower could speak. He only hoped that the flower wouldn't cause any trouble for him. He wasn't sure if he could deal with it. "Why do you want to leave?" "I just want to chat with you." "Nothing else." The woman's voice came from within the flower again. "Call me a fool if I believe you." Such lines often appear in movies and dramas. Many men say this to women to cheat them into getting a room. Zhou Wen thought to himself, but he still retreated without answering the flower. Zhou Wen had heard a story from his grandfather when he was young. He said that when walking in the middle of the night, One was not to answer or turn their head to look once they heard a stranger calling their name from behind. Otherwise, they would die. Chapter 412. The Flower's Powers. 7 Steps. If you take another 7 steps, you will die. If you don't believe me, you can continue walking. The flower's voice sounded again. A cold sweat broke out on Zhou Wen's forehead as he stood there, unsure if he should continue walking. Logically speaking, Truth Listener was able to nullify any evil powers, but there was no invincible power in this world. Zhou Wen still hadn't figured out what kind of evil powers Truth Listener could nullify. If the flower was just making an empty threat, Zhou Wen would be fine with leaving, but what if it was speaking the truth? Zhou Wen didn't dare gamble with his life. However, Zhou Wen wasn't willing to be frightened by the flower. Gritting his teeth, he continued retreating. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. As he retreated, he looked at the flower on the mountain wall. The flower didn't make another sound. This only made Zhou Wen feel uneasy. 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps. Zhou Wen continued walking, but there was no reaction from the Truth Listener earring. Zhou Wen's heart drummed. Could it really be a hoax? Why isn't there any reaction at all? Despite having this in mind, he didn't dare to take the final step. That's right. Zhou Wen was indeed afraid of death, and there didn't seem to be a need for him to risk his life. Why aren't you walking? You have 1 more step to go. The flower finally spoke, but its tone was filled with mockery. We don't have any feud. Why are you making things difficult for me? If you lack fertilizer, I'll help you find it. If you lack water, I'll water you. How about that? Zhou Wen stood there and shouted at the flower on the mountain wall. Why would I want your water and fertilizer? The flower said coldly. From now on, answer the questions I ask you. If you satisfy me, I'll spare your life. Otherwise, I'll make you beg for death. Even if you die, I'll turn you into a candle. I can't stand being threatened by others. I'm leaving. What can you do about it? Zhou Wen said as he raised his foot. However, just as he raised his foot, he felt a wave of dizziness and almost fell to the ground. Alarmed, he stopped in his tracks, not daring to lift his foot to take the step. Damn it, how did this happen? Zhou Wen was appalled. He knew that the flower was speaking the truth. Why aren't you leaving? Continue walking. Where did your temper go? The flower teased. Zhou Wen thought to himself, there's no need to lose my life over a quarrel with a flower. Even Truth Listeners, evil nullification life soul, is useless. I wonder what origins this flower has. You seem to be the only flower growing on the mountain wall. You must be very lonely and sad. I hate seeing others sad and suffer, so I'll chat with you. However, since it's a chat, it can't just be you asking questions. I should be able to ask you some questions too. Don't you agree? Zhou Wen bargained. The flower didn't refute him. Instead, it asked, "What's your name?" Zhou Wen's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that in myths, there was a power capable of imprisoning people with the mere calling out of a name. He was momentarily unsure if he should answer. Why are you so wishy-washy? Just die, the flower said impatiently. My name is Zhou Wen. What's your name? Zhou Wen knew that it was useless even if he used a fake name. This was because the name was actually just a representation. From his mouth, no matter if it was real or fake, it represented himself. If the other party really had that ability, It would be effective even on a fake name. Call me the Theurch. The flower paused before asking, "Why are you here?" Will you believe me if I say that I'm here as a tourist? Although Zhou Wen said that, he thought to himself, to think a flower wants to be called a Theurch. Is it crazy? The flower chuckled. I believe you. Why not? Since you're here to travel, I'll do a good deed. I'll take you to Chess Mountain for a tour. With that said, the wall in which the flower was rooted in cracked. The cracks expanded slowly, causing Chess Mountain to shake slightly as if the mountain was about to split open. There's no need to trouble you. I'm afraid of heights. I hate climbing mountains the most. I'll just watch the river scenery here. The beads of cold sweat on Zhou Wen's forehead increased a lot. The swaying mountain finally calmed down. The flower mocked. Are you really not coming in to take a look? There's really no need. Zhou Wen hurriedly waved his hand before changing the topic. Are there many dimensional creatures in Chess Mountain? Are there any mythical creatures? Of course, and there's plenty. Which would you like to see? I can get them to come out to meet you, the flower said with a smile. There's no need. I was just asking. Zhou Wen suspected that the flower was bluffing him with its inane claims. It was just a flower, and it grew on a mountain wall that had suffered the elements. However, its tone sounded like it was the monarch of Chess Mountain. This left him very suspicious. Are there currently many humans with strength like yours? The flower asked. There should be quite a number. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't a small number. During Jing Daoxian's era, not long after the dimensional storms, there were very few epic experts. Over the past few decades, epic experts were no longer as rare as they used to be. How many humans are there now? The flower continued asking. It shouldn't be more than 10 billion, I guess. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and replied. These weren't secrets, and there was nothing to hide. Then, people of your standard should number a few 100 million, the flower muttered. I don't think there's that many. Zhou Wen found it a little difficult to speak after hearing the flower's words. This was because the actual situation was too different from the flower's guesses. Although Zhou Wen didn't know how many epic experts there were in the Federation, he estimated that it was difficult to even reach 6 digits. It was already quite good to have tens of thousands. Tens of millions, the flower guessed again. A little fewer, Zhou Wen said helplessly. Just a few million. Are humans so weak now? There are so few people at your level, the flower said in a tone of disbelief. Something like that. I'm basically considered relatively weak. Zhou Wen couldn't tell the flower that it should reduce the number it guessed by 100 times. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and asked, Are you very familiar with Chess Mountain? Have you seen a symbol here? It's a picture of a tiny palm. There might be something in the palm. Zhou Wen roughly described the tiny palm symbol. Since he couldn't leave, he might as well take the opportunity to find out more. Perhaps this flower really knew. There is indeed such a symbol on the top of Chess Mountain. I don't know who carved it. It irritates me. Why are you looking for it? The flower asked. Chapter 413, Climbing the Mountain. Zhou Wen was overjoyed when he heard that there was the tiny palm symbol. However, when he thought of how it was at the top of Chess Mountain, a place he didn't dare head up, he couldn't help but turn sullen. I've seen similar symbols in other dimensional zones, but I don't know what the symbol means. Therefore, I've been studying them all this time, hoping to take a picture. By the way, Do you know what the tiny palm symbol represents? Zhou Wen asked half-truthfully. How would I know? I don't know who carved it out of boredom. It's easy if you want to see it. Once you reach the peak, you will naturally be able to see it, the flower said. Forget it. It's not necessary. Upon hearing that he was going to have to climb up the mountain, Zhou Wen rejected it without even thinking. There were countless terrifying creatures in Chess Mountain. Who knew if he would be able to come out after climbing up there? However, the little flower laughed. So you don't want to climb it? Then I'll make you. If you can't reach the peak within 2 hours, your eyes will go blind. Previously, when the flower said that he would die within 7 steps, Zhou Wen didn't pay attention. However, this time, he saw it clearly. Just as the flower's voice faded, one of its petals wilted and scattered in the air as a point of light, as though it had vanished into thin air. Zhou Wen didn't feel anything, nor did the truth listener earring react. However, he knew that he had probably been hit by some curse. What origins does this flower have? Why is its power so strange? Zhou Wen looked at the flower and asked, You said that I would die if I took 7 steps. Now, you want me to climb the mountain within 2 hours. Doesn't this conflict? The flower said calmly, Don't worry. The first wish's wish forces have been covered by the second wish. You can walk anywhere you want now without dying. However, if you don't ascend Chess Mountain's peak in 2 hours, you will definitely become blind. Even a mythical primordial energy skill that can resurrect the dead won't be able to restore your vision. If you don't believe me, go ahead and leave this place. What are you really up to? Zhou Wen looked up at the flower on the mountain wall and asked. If he were to go up Chess Mountain, he was afraid that he would lose his life. Being blind was better than dying. At the very least, he still had the truth listener earring. Even if he was blind, he wouldn't be completely blind. He could use his ears as a substitute for his eyes. He just wouldn't be able to see any colors or changes in shadows in the future. Nothing. I just find it fun. If you don't want to climb the mountain, you can leave now. However, if I'm in a bad mood one day and think about you, I might make another wish to turn you into a cripple. I believe it will be very interesting, the flower said. Zhou Wen stared at the flower and thought to himself, Indeed, I shouldn't take risks going near dimensional zones. It's better to just stay home and game. If you wish to kill me, just do it. There's no need to go through so much trouble, Zhou Wen said as he stared at the flower. If it wasn't for your good looks, do you think you could still stand and talk to me, a theurch? The flower said in contempt. Zhou Wen was immediately rendered speechless. He thought to himself, You are a flower. Why would you have any idea about human looks? The flower continued, Forget it. I shall tell you another secret. There's a treasure on the top of Chess Mountain. You shall have a chance of obtaining that treasure if you can climb up there. Based on the standards of you humans, it is a mythical item. What mythical item is it? Zhou Wen asked. You'll know when you get up there. However, I shall give you a hint. Don't think about flying up. You must climb up the mountain wall. Otherwise you'll die, the flower said. All right, I'll climb. Zhou Wen gritted his teeth. He knew that he had provoked this flower. Even if he were to leave now, there would be endless trouble. He might as well go take a look. If there was really a tiny palm symbol, he could snap it and download it into the game. He could then understand Chess Mountain's secret in-game and think of a way to eliminate the flower's pestering. Zhou Wen walked to the stone wall and reached out to grab the cracks on the rock before climbing up. The moment he climbed up, he immediately felt that something was amiss. A powerful magnet seemed to be situated beneath Chess Mountain. It tugged at his body, making it suddenly feel heavy. He struggled to climb up, just like ordinary people when they went rock climbing. "Do you find yourself heavy?" the flower's voice sounded. "Why did this happen?" Zhou Wen asked as he crawled up. "The Chess Mountain is a sealed place. Even those true immortals don't dare approach it. Only your human body can approach it. It won't be injured by the power of the seal, but it will still be affected by it," said the flower. "A sealed place? Who sealed it?" Zhou Wen took the opportunity to gather information. "If you can climb up the mountain and see that mythical item, you will naturally be able to guess who he is. If you don't climb up, it's useless telling you." The flower paused and said, "Since you have already climbed up, don't think about retreating. Otherwise, you shall die. If you don't believe me, look down." Zhou Wen looked down and was alarmed. He had only climbed up a few meters, but the bottom had turned into a bottomless abyss, as though it was leading straight to hell. "Damn you, flower, just you wait. Once I download Chess Mountain's instance dungeon and find your weakness in game, I'll finish you," Zhou Wen thought hatefully. He didn't know if it was an illusion or what was going on, but since he had come up, Zhou Wen didn't plan on retreating. He continued climbing up. The more he climbed up, the heavier his body became. It was as though his body was covered in chains. Even with Zhou Wen's strong physique, he found it exhausting just climbing a few hundred meters. Thankfully, Chess Mountain wasn't tall. It was only about 700–800 meters. If it was a mountain that was thousands of meters high, Zhou Wen really doubted if he could scale it. The flower said, "I couldn't tell. Your perseverance is not bad. It's okay. You've been at Chess Mountain for so long. Do you know who Chess Mountain's original owner is?" Zhou Wen didn't forget to fish for more information. "I'm the owner of Chess Mountain," the flower said with a laugh. Zhou Wen naturally didn't believe it. According to Xianxia, Chess Mountain traced to the ancient Jiaj city. If that was the case, there would definitely be many mythical creatures inside. There would be no lack of famous mythical existences. Even if this flower had powerful and strange powers, Zhou Wen definitely didn't believe its claim of being the owner of Chess Mountain. Despite nearing the summit, Zhou Wen's truth listener still couldn't hear anything from the top of the mountain. It was as though there was some mysterious force blocking the sounds, preventing Zhou Wen from peeping at the mountain peak. Now, Zhou Wen felt as though someone was pulling him with a chain beneath him. Every step he climbed up required him to use all his strength. He had no choice but to use the ancient sovereign life soul to replenish his vital energies. This eased him greatly. The aura of an ancient human sovereign. "Do you cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra?" The flower sensed the power of the ancient sovereign life soul and immediately guessed the primordial energy art Zhou when cultivated. Chapter 414. Peak. "You know about the ancient sovereign sutra?" Zhou Wen asked. The flower laughed and said, "It's not like it's something impressive. Why wouldn't I know? It's no wonder you climbed up Chess Mountain so easily. It turns out that you've cultivated the ancient sovereign sutra. However, after cultivating the ancient sovereign sutra, your future will not be too easy. It will be extremely difficult to pass the mythical stage." "Why would it be difficult to cultivate the ancient sovereign sutra?" Aren't other primordial energy arts difficult to cultivate? Zhou Wen's heart stirred as he tried to get the way to advance to the mythical stage from the flower's mouth. To date, Zhou Wen had never heard of humans becoming mythical experts. If he could obtain a method to advance to the mythical stage, he might be the first mythical expert among humans. They're difficult too. However, ordinary primordial energy arts follow the order of the world. The ancient Sovereign Sutra works by destroying the order of the world, so naturally, the difficulty is greater. Furthermore, the founder of the ancient Sovereign Sutra, the strongest human sovereign of your human race, ultimately failed to change fate, the flower said. Which human sovereign are you referring to? Zhou Wen hurriedly asked. As a human and one that cultivates the ancient Sovereign Sutra, you don't even know your race's sovereign, Xianxia. The flower was puzzled. Only then did Zhou Wen realize that the ancient Sovereign Sutra was a primordial energy art left behind by Xianxia. It was the leader who had brought fire to humanity. Zhou Wen originally believed that the ancient Sovereign Sutra was discovered on Yibo platform. It might have something to do with Yibo. He never expected it to be Xianxia's primordial energy art. When you talk about changing fate, do you mean that human sovereign ultimately failed to advance to the mythical stage? Zhou Wen thought to himself that if that were the case, it would be even more difficult to advance the ancient Sovereign Sutra to the mythical stage in the future. You can understand it as that too, the flower said rather ambiguously. It didn't continue the topic. Instead, it said, once you reach the top of the mountain, you will see a stone staircase. Follow it, but do not walk around recklessly. Otherwise, don't blame your death on me. The tiny palm symbol will be engraved on the boulder at the end of the stone steps. What's that mythical item you mentioned? Zhou Wen asked. You're almost there. It's on the boulder. The flower ultimately didn't answer his question. Even with the augmentation of the ancient sovereign life soul, it still took his all to just climb up. When he finally reached the mountaintop, his fingers trembled as he held them to the ground. He looked up and sized up the mountaintop. Indeed, there was a stone staircase leading to the center of the mountain summit. There was a huge black boulder that looked like a steamed bun. Zhou Wen immediately saw the tiny palm symbol on the stone and couldn't help but be overjoyed. That flower didn't lie to me. There really is a tiny palm symbol. Zhou Wen stood up and carefully approached the bun resembling black boulder. As Zhou Wen took a few steps, he felt the mysterious phone vibrate in his pocket. Zhou Wen took it out and automatically opened the camera app. He aimed the phone at the black boulder, and the camera automatically focused. It locked onto the small palm symbol on the boulder before producing a snapping sound. It turned into the downloading interface. What is that in your hand? The flower's voice came from the mountain wall. Don't you know what a cell phone is? Zhou Wen realized that the mountain peak wasn't as dangerous as he had imagined it to be. It wasn't as terrifying as the flower had said. It was barren, and he felt a little more relaxed. Now that he had downloaded the game dungeon, he could research the flower's weakness when he got back. After he had researched it thoroughly, he could deal with it. As long as he didn't die here, he still had a chance to turn the tables even if he was blinded by the flower. Wait, if I'm blind, will the blood-colored avatar in-game be blind? Zhou Wen suddenly thought of a serious problem. He and the blood-colored avatar shared the same vantage view. If the blood-colored avatar also became blind and he couldn't see the screen, Wouldn't that mean that he couldn't game? What is a cell phone? It doesn't look like a treasure, as it doesn't have any primordial energy fluctuations, the flower said. It's not a treasure. It's just a communication tool that we humans use to communicate across distances. There are also some functions like taking pictures. Everyone has one. Zhou Wen tried his best to describe the phone as something rather common to prevent the flower from suddenly becoming interested in the phone. What does taking pictures mean? The flower asked again. It's to record down a scene into a drawing. I can take pictures of people or scenery, Zhou Wen said as he put away the mysterious phone. It looked like the flower was interested in the phone. Is that so? Take a photo and let me see, the flower said. Zhou Wen was already mentally prepared as he took out his ordinary phone and took a few photos with his phone. This thing is rather interesting. The drawings are so realistic. The flower paused and said, "How do you speak with this thing across distances?" It's very simple. Every phone has a number. As long as you call this number, you can call another phone a distance away. However, there's no signal here, so there's no way to talk. Zhou Wen realized that there was no signal here. What is a signal? The flower asked again. I don't quite understand that either. It roughly entails humans establishing cell towers. Through these cell towers, we can transmit signals across distances. There's no cell tower here, so there's no way to use the phone to communicate. Zhou Wen wasn't very knowledgeable on such matters, so he just gave a general explanation. I understand. You have 2 phones. Give one to me then. You don't have any objections, right? Although the flower was inquiring, its tone wasn't taking no for an answer. Sure, but there's no signal here. It's useless, even if you have the phone, right? Besides, you don't have hands. How are you going to use the phone? Zhou Wen asked. It's none of your business. Just place your phone on the stone steps, the flower said. Zhou Wen deleted his own information on the phone. Thankfully, he didn't use it often. There wasn't much private information inside, so he deleted it in a few seconds. What's the number of this phone and the other phone? The flower asked. Zhou Wen told the flower his cell phone number before saying, I didn't get a number for my other phone. I'll only get it after I return. However, there's communication software in there that can be used for communication. It can't be used due to a lack of signal, though. It's all right. Tell me how to use it. The flower was very calm. Zhou Wen told the flower how to use the communication software. He still wanted to return alive, so he agreed to any of the flower's requests. After Zhou Wen gave the tutorial, the flower claimed that it understood. It was unknown if it really understood or was faking it. After all, there wasn't any signal here and there wasn't much use for having a phone. It was the same even if it didn't understand. Therefore, he couldn't be bothered to say more. By the way, where is the mythical item you mentioned? Why don't I see it? Didn't I tell you that it's on the boulder? You can see from its side, said the flower. Chapter 415, Treasure Box. The bun-shaped boulder was about 1 meter tall. After Zhou Wen got closer, he could see the top. There was a white jade box embedded in the middle of the boulder. When Zhou Wen saw that the white jade box didn't seem particularly outstanding, he asked, Is the mythical item that you mentioned in this jade box? No. That jade box is the mythical item, the flower said. The jade box is the mythical item. Zhou Wen sized it up, but he couldn't find anything special about it. It didn't have any extraordinary luster or mythical patterns. It looked like an ordinary box made of white jade. It was about a foot long and only about 4 fingers wide. A real treasure is right in front of you, but you can't recognize it. You can be considered blind. Based on my personality back then, I would have dug your eyes out to quell my anger. The flower paused before continuing. That box is a mythical expert's mythical item. It has terrifying power. Even a mythical creature like a dragon wouldn't be able to withstand the power of the box. This Chess Mountain seal remains because of its suppression. You mean that if I take it away, the seal on Chess Mountain will be lifted? Zhou Wen asked in surprise. He originally thought that the flower was trying to trick him into taking the treasure here, and to achieve some hidden ploy. However, the first thing the flower said was to point out the importance of the jade box. It left Zhou Wen surprised. The flower said disdainfully, "As such a weak human, you don't have the right to take it away. Even a mythical creature needs a special physique to be able to take it out. You're still far from it." After pausing for a moment, the flower continued, "But if you can advance to the mythical stage in the future, you can come over and give it a try. You cultivate in the ancient Sovereign Sutra, so you might have a chance to take it away. Only when I'm mad would I take it away. Why would I allow these monsters to walk the land?" Zhou Wen thought to himself. The flower seemed to see through Zhou Wen's thoughts as it said with a laugh, "It's only a matter of time before the dimensional zones rule the land. Even if you don't take it, someone will take it away in the future. Even in dimensional zones, this item is a unique treasure. It has killed countless mythical creatures. If you really are that great, just pretend that it doesn't exist." Zhou Wen was tempted when he heard that. The flower's words weren't without reason. When that truly happened, his choice of leaving it here would only benefit someone else. Although he knew that the flower was tempting him, it was a lie to say that he wasn't tempted. However, he couldn't take it now. "I'll give it a try in-game. If I can take it away in-game, it shouldn't affect the real world," Zhou Wen thought to himself. "I've climbed up the mountain and got my things. I've also given you my phone. Can I leave now?" Zhou Wen asked. "Up to you." The flower had no intention of stopping Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen hurriedly climbed down again. It was harder to go down the mountain than up the mountain. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had cultivated for so many years, so even if he didn't fly, he was still considered agile. "So, I'm really leaving," Zhou Wen said as he looked in the direction of the flower, afraid that something would happen again. "Are you planning on getting me to keep you here on Chess Mountain for a meal?" the flower said coldly. "There's no need to be so polite. I'll take my leave now. I'll contact you when I have the time." Zhou Wen hurriedly turned around and left. The flower had an unpredictable temperament. It was best if he could leave quickly. "When I find a loophole in game, I'll deal with you when I come back." After Zhou Wen left Chess Mountain, he took out the phone and saw that it had already finished downloading. There was a new game icon on the home screen. The icon was a black mountain with the name Chess Mountain. Zhou Wen rode the mutated stone Kai back and immediately opened the Chess Mountain dungeon. After entering the game, the blood-colored avatar stood in front of Chess Mountain's wall. There was a flower growing on it. Although the cartoon-styled flower looked a little different from the real world, he could still vaguely tell that it was the flower Zhou Wen had seen. Although he was in-game, Zhou Wen held back and didn't attack the flower because he couldn't die yet. He headed to the underground sea every 24 hours to deliver a poison dragon palm at the black dragon to drain it to its death. If it dropped a mythical companion beast, he would have made a killing. Even without a mythical companion beast, it would be a huge gain for him to have a primordial energy skill crystal drop. After all, Zhou Wen hadn't had the ability to kill a mythical creature yet. It was very difficult to obtain a dimensional crystal at the mythical stage. Standing in front of the mountain wall and sizing up the flower, he realized it didn't speak like it did in real life. It just quietly grew on the mountain wall. Zhou Wen decided to wait until he killed the black dragon before teaching the flower a lesson. Then, he chose to leave the game dungeon. In a dark cave, a seductive woman was bound by criss-cross chains. The chains with runes pierced through her bones and chained her inside the cave. She couldn't even move and could only sit on the mountain wall. Her neck and legs were chained, and she couldn't move at all. At that moment, a phone was floating in front of the seductive woman. It was the one Zhou Wen had placed on the stone steps. The seductive woman's gaze landed on the phone, but there seemed to be a pair of invisible hands that grabbed the phone and quickly operated it. A cell phone is quite interesting. A strange smile gradually appeared on the seductive woman's face. Zhou Wen returned to the encampment and finished grinding the game dungeons. Having nothing else to do, he took out his books from the chaos space to read. Previously, during his battle with Jock, he had gained a new understanding of Lost Country. However, it hadn't reached the level where he could advance Lost Country to the evolved body stage. Now, he could use this period of time to study it and see if he could advance further, allowing Lost Country to become an evolved body. A life soul itself had a certain ability, but the usage of the life soul's ability required the owner of the life soul to develop it himself. Teleportation was only the most basic usage of spatial trajectory forces. After receiving inspiration from Jock, Zhou Wen thought of a different way of making use of spatial trajectories, trajectory control. After the average person's strength was projected out, it was equivalent to spending money. It was impossible for them to get it back, and they could not repeatedly use the same money to buy things. However, by using the effect of spatial trajectories, he could still control the forces he sent out. They were connected to each other via the trajectory, but this connection was different from what most people thought. It was invisible and did not physically exist. Using this trajectory connection, Zhou Wen could be like Jock. He could set up his strength as though he was burying a landmine. With a detonator in hand, he could detonate any landmines he had buried beforehand. Chapter 416, Dr. Little Zhu. However, in contrast, Jock's life blast was more sinister. This was because Jock was detonating the energy of life itself. This meant that he didn't expend his primordial energy. All he did was rely on the energies of others. Zhou Wen's method was to expend his primordial energy to set up a landmine. It would be a lot more troublesome, and the expenditure was even more severe. However, Life Blast was just too sinister. Every strike required the lives of others in exchange. The stronger the vital energy, the stronger the explosion would be. Zhou Wen attempted to use the spatial trajectory he had figured out. Every trajectory link formed a string on his ring. If many of the trajectories connected, it would cover the ring with all sorts of lines as though they were incantations. He had been studying the effects of spatial trajectories and used it as a breakthrough point in an attempt to advance the Lost Country to an evolved body. Unfortunately, The advancement of a life soul was clearly not that simple. After studying it the entire afternoon, Zhou Wen didn't make much progress. However, he was more familiar with the usage of spatial trajectories. Zhou Wen felt uncomfortable reading in his room. Just as he got to the door with a book in hand and moved a chair to read at the door, an officer holding a wash basin saw him and immediately came up to greet him. "Dr. Little Zhu, so you're staying here. I really have to thank you for saving Liu Gui's life." "Doctor, Liu said that if you hadn't handled it in time, Liu Gui would have died." "It's nothing, it's my duty." Zhou Wen had treated the case as a last-ditch effort. He didn't wish to repeat it a second time. "Dr. Little Zhu, I've been to the river recently and have rashes on my body. Although they aren't serious and will fade in 2 days, they are really itchy. Do you have any method to stop the itch?" the officer asked Zhou Wen. "Of course. A single injection can stop the itch," Zhou Wen said without any hesitation. Dr. Darkness's fight poison with poison could restrain the rash poison. As long as the dosage was appropriate, it was easy to eliminate the rash. "Really?" The officer's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhou Wen with anticipation. "Dr. Zhu, can you give me an injection? I can't stand it any longer. I wish I could tear my bones to pieces." "All right. Come over and extend your arm." This was a trivial matter to Zhou Wen. Since it was simple, it was only right to help him. After all, they were stationed here and fighting dimensional creatures with their lives. This allowed the residents of the city to live in peace. The officer was overjoyed as he hurriedly rolled up his sleeves and stretched out his arm. Zhou Wen directly summoned Dr. Darkness to possess him. After using fight poison with poison, a syringe appeared in his hand. As he wasn't professional, Zhou Wen didn't use any rubber bands to make the blood vessels protrude. He directly stabbed the needle and accurately stabbed into the blood vessel, before slowly pushing in an extremely minute amount of poison. The officer's face was still full of excitement at the beginning. He thought that he finally didn't have to endure the crazy itch anymore. However, in the next second, the officer's face turned pale. He felt an incomparable pain that he had never experienced in his entire life. It instantly spread through his entire body, causing his entire body to spasm. Anyone who had a cramp in their legs would know that cramps felt terrible, but now, his entire body was cramping violently. Not only his legs, even his fingers and toes were cramping, and his organs were about to collapse. The officer fell onto the ground and convulsed on the ground like a lunatic. White foam spewed from his mouth as his eyes rolled back. At this moment, if he still had the strength, he would have slammed himself to death. This pain was much worse than the itch before. "I administered a little too much." Zhou Wen looked at the officer and muttered to himself. He wasn't worried that something would happen to the officer, because the amount of dosage he had injected was already very minute. It wasn't enough to cause too much damage, just a little pain. The nearby soldiers didn't know what had happened, but they all came over with concern. Seeing that the officer was twitching non-stop, they wanted to send him to the medical team. "Don't touch him. He will be fine soon." Zhou Wen stopped the soldiers. One of the soldiers seemed to understand what was going on. He said to the other soldiers, "This young man is right. This is called epilepsy. Don't touch him when he's spasming. Otherwise, he might die. Quickly place his head on the side and use something to block his tongue. Don't let him bite his tongue. He should recover in a while." "Epilepsy, you as?" The officer finally endured through the most painful period and sat up with a pale face. At this moment, he deeply regretted it. Thoughts of dying had run through his mind several times just now, so that he wouldn't have to suffer such inhuman pain. If he had known earlier that it would be so painful, he would rather have suffered the itch. "Thank you, Dr. Little Zhou." Although he felt regret, the officer still thanked Zhou Wen politely before leaving with a pale face. Zhou Wen thought nothing of the matter. It had been easy to help him. However, Zhou Wen never expected that this very simple help played a huge role that night. As usual, the officer led a group of soldiers to patrol the river. When they were patrolling a spot by the river, a strange fish suddenly stuck its head out from the river and spat out a mouthful of bloody water at the soldiers on the bank. The soldiers dodged, but the blood covered a large area like rain. Despite dodging very quickly, they were still drenched. The other soldiers immediately went into a coma from the poison. Their bodies began to break out into the red rashes. Only the officer was surprisingly fine, despite being drenched in blood. Thankfully, he hadn't fainted and was able to bring his soldiers back to the camp in time. Otherwise, if they had all fainted, no one would have realized they were dead until some time later. The officer used his companion beast to take a group of soldiers back to the camp and send them to the medical team. When Lu Su saw that the rashes on their bodies had already festered, she shook her head in exasperation and said, "No, the poison has already spread to the blood in their bodies. There's no way they can be saved." The officer was stunned when he heard that. He said in disbelief, "That's impossible. How can there be no hope? Dr. Lu, think of another solution. There must be a way to save them." These soldiers had always been with him, so how could he not have any feelings for them? When he heard that they were about to die, he naturally found it unacceptable. They were hit by the bloody water spewed out by the dimensional creature you mentioned. The poison spread too quickly, and there's no hope for them. Thankfully, you weren't stained by the blood, or you would suffer the same fate as them," Lu Su said. "No, I was also stained by it. Why am I fine?" "Oh right, it's Dr. Little Zhou. Dr. Little Zhou definitely can save them. Last time, Liu Gui was in a worse state than them. He was treated by Dr. Little Zhou. Dr. Lu, quickly get Dr. Little Zhou here." "He can treat him," the officer said anxiously. Chapter 417, He's Really a Doctor. Lu Su frowned and said, "Our medical team doesn't have the Dr. Zhou when you mentioned previously. If there is, how could we not get him to save you all?" "How can that be? He's clearly from your medical team, and I've even seen his identification documents." "Oh right, he's not a doctor yet. He's just an intern doctor," the officer said. "There's no such person even amongst the intern doctors. There's no one with the Zhou surname either." Lu Su felt that grief had gotten to this officer's head, that he started spouting nonsense. If he had really been hit by the blood, how could he come back alive? He even dragged his comrades back while remaining fine. "Impossible. He's clearly here." As the officer spoke, he seemed to think of something. He ran outside as though he had gone crazy. "Duh! What madness!" Lu Su sighed. The present era was an era that drove people crazy. Although humans possessed superpowers that they never dared to dream of, they were still burdened with unimaginable pressure. Many people couldn't withstand the impact, and this devolved into psychological problems. To Lu Su, This officer was someone who couldn't withstand the blow, which resulted in psychological problems. The officer didn't have that many thoughts. He ran all the way to where he had met Zhou Wen. He remembered which dorm he was in. He came for Zhou Wen, not to prove his existence as Dr. Little Zhou, but to get him to save his comrades. Zhou Wen was reading in bed when he suddenly heard a series of urgent knocks on the door. Then, he heard someone shouting desperately outside. "Dr. Little Zhou, help! Dr. Little Zhou, are you there?" Zhou Wen could tell that the officer was outside, so he opened the door. "Dr. Little Zhou, I'm so glad you're here. Please save my brothers." Upon seeing Zhou Wen, the officer felt like crying. Without another word, he pulled Zhou Wen towards the medical team. As he was being pulled to the medical team, Zhou Wen asked, puzzled, "What's the matter?" "My brothers were suddenly attacked by a dimensional creature while they were patrolling alongside the river. They were sprayed with blood and quickly fell unconscious. They have rashes on their bodies, and they are rapidly festering. The doctors are helpless. It will be too late if you don't do something," the officer said. Zhou Wen quickened his steps when he heard that. He didn't wish to see a living person die in front of him. He would do his best. Soon, Zhou Wen was pulled to the medical team by the officer. He saw 6 soldiers lying in a special ward with 2 nurses and a doctor taking care of them. However, their situation hadn't improved at all. The rashes on their faces and hands had already turned into bloody holes. From afar, they looked as if blood-colored flowers had bloomed on their faces. There was no beauty about it, and only made one shudder. "Dr. Little Zhou, quickly save my brothers. Quickly give them the injection," the officer said anxiously as he pulled Zhou Wen along. "Are you the Dr. Zhou Wen they mentioned?" Lu Su sized up Zhou Wen suspiciously. She was certain that Zhou Wen wasn't from the medical team. She knew everyone from the medical team, and there wasn't such a character. Furthermore, Zhou Wen looked too young. He was probably less than 20 years old. It was no wonder the officer called him Dr. Little Zhou. Usually, one would attend university at the age of 16. After graduation, they would be 20 years old. "I'm a new intern doctor, Zhou Wen. I haven't reported to the medical team yet," Zhou Wen said as he showed his identification. Lu Su took the document and looked at it. It was true. He was indeed an intern. This person was not a figment of imagination fabricated by those soldiers. "Can I take a look at their injuries?" Zhou Wen asked Lu Su. Of course. Lu Su also wanted to know if Zhou Wen could treat the poison. If he could really treat it, Lu Su would be very grateful to him. The military wasn't a hospital. There wasn't any competition or selfishness that ordinary doctors had. Saving a soldier's life was more important than anything. Furthermore, if Zhou Wen could treat the rashes, it would be a great thing for the garrison in Chess Mountain. It would resolve a huge problem. Seeing Lu Su agree, Zhou Wen went to an injured soldier and looked at his injuries. The 2 nurses beside him looked up curiously. Zhou Wen looked a little younger than them, but he was called a doctor by the officer. Furthermore, he seemed to have placed all his hopes on him, making them curious as to what kind of person Zhou Wen was. They were curious as to whether Zhou Wen could really treat the soldiers' rashes. Zhou Wen could tell that they were indeed the same as the red rashes he had seen previously. Immediately, he summoned Dr. Darkness to possess him and used fight poison with poison. A syringe appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen grabbed the soldier's wrist and stabbed it. Lu Su jumped in fright, but it was too late to stop him. Because Zhou Wen had delivered an injection with just one look, this made him appear somewhat unreliable. However, on second thought, Lu Su felt that no matter how unreliable he was, there was still hope. Even if Zhou Wen didn't inject the soldiers wouldn't be able to survive, so she didn't stop him. From his 2 previous experiences, Zhou Wen had a general idea of the dosage needed to be injected. Therefore, he stopped after a certain amount of dosage was injected and walked towards the next soldier. There were only 6 soldiers in total. In just an instant, Zhou Wen had fully administered it to them all. "It's done. That's all I can do. I'll have to trouble the nurses to help deal with their festering injuries," Zhou Wen said. "Dr. Little Zhu, are they all right now?" the officer asked nervously. "If nothing unexpected happens, it should be like Liu Gui. They need to recuperate for some time. I still have matters to tend to, so I'll be heading back now," Zhou Wen said as he walked out. The officer trusted Zhou Wen very much. Upon hearing Zhou Wen's words, the weight on his heart was lifted. After thanking him, he ran to the beds to see his comrades. Lu Su frowned as she watched. From his attitude when he injected the patients, she could tell that Zhou Wen was extremely unprofessional. He even had problems being an intern doctor. For such a seriously injured patient, he had to observe their reactions after injecting a drug. Yet, he didn't even look at them and left after the injections. He didn't look like a doctor at all. Lu Su had no idea that Zhou Wen wasn't a doctor. He didn't know any medical skills, so it was useless staying. She wanted to stop Zhou Wen, but before she could speak, she heard a nurse cry out, He's reacting." Lu Su hurriedly looked at the nurse and saw her pointing at a soldier, shock filling the nurse's face. She looked at the soldier and surprise colored her face as well. The soldier grunted softly and woke up. Furthermore, his rashes seemed to have stopped festering. Chapter 418, Magical Medicinal Effects. The 6 soldiers quickly woke up. It was fine even if they hadn't woken up, but the poison that Zhou Wen had injected was so excruciatingly painful that it jolted them awake. Lu Su quickly did a checkup on the 6 soldiers and discovered that the toxins and red spots on their bodies had receded. Their spirits were slowly recovering. It was unbelievable. This is unbelievable. How did he do it? Lu Su was shocked, but she didn't stay idle. She dealt with the 6 soldiers' wounds with the 2 nurses. Although the toxins and red rashes had subsided, the festering wounds had not healed. They still needed treatment. After working for half the day, when the 6 soldiers were deep asleep, the surprise in Lu Su's eyes intensified. It could be confirmed that the rashes on these soldiers had indeed subsided after a short period. How did he do it? Lu Su had researched the rashes for a long time, but she still couldn't find a way to treat them. It was fine if the rash didn't act up, but once it did, the patient would definitely die. However, the 6 soldiers today, who had already taken half a step into the jaws of death, recovered with a simple injection from Zhou Wen. It was unbelievable. What medicine is he using? Why is it so effective? Lu Su thought to herself. "Thank you, Dr. Lu," the officer said to Lu Su gratefully. Although Lu Su didn't save her comrades, she had done all she could to deal with their festering wounds. This was already very precious. "I'm asking you, were you really splattered by the blood?" Lu Su looked at the officer and asked. That's right. If I could have reacted in time, I wouldn't have let my comrades get soaked in the blood, the officer said. Then why aren't you infected with rashes like them? Lu Su asked again. She naturally believed the officer's words. The officer thought for a moment and said, "It should be this morning. I got Dr. Little Zhu to give me a shot. Perhaps the shot's medicinal effect is still present in my system." Now, he was very glad that Zhou Wen had given him the injection. Otherwise, they would all have been left unconscious there. By the time the other patrols discovered them, they would have been dead. In comparison, the little pain he suffered was nothing. Could it be that the medicine has lingering effects, or it has created antibodies? Lu Su thought to herself. If it was the latter, the medicine Zhou Wen used would be even more precious. Lu Su planned on finding a time to have a good chat with Zhou Wen and see if there was any chance of mass-producing the medicine. She believed that Zhou Wen would be reporting to her very soon. Lu Su was the in charge of the medical team, so all interns should report to her. However, Lu Su didn't see Zhou Wen the next day. Lu Su was not angered because of this. She knew very well that an intern doctor had to report to her first, before their lodging and identification documents were arranged and distributed by the medical team. Zhou Wen didn't report to her, but he already had a residence and identification documents. Clearly, his identity wasn't ordinary. Furthermore, Zhou Wen could actually treat the rashes. This made Lu Su even more convinced that he didn't have a simple background. Therefore, Lu Su planned on visiting him personally. The officer often went to see his comrade, so learning where Zhou Wen stayed wasn't difficult. But when Lu Su arrived at Zhou Wen's dorm, she realized that the door was locked. There wasn't anyone inside. However, after seeing Zhou Wen's living quarters, Lu Su was even more certain that Zhou Wen wasn't an ordinary intern doctor. How could an intern doctor have a single room? Even ordinary low-ranking officers didn't receive such treatment. As the main supervisor of the medical team, she had barely managed to get herself a single room. Lu Su thought for a while and returned to the medical team, planning to visit again at night. Zhou Wen really wasn't at the encampment, as his phone had been taken away by the flower. He couldn't contact his schoolmates. He hadn't requested absence of leave from Wang Lu, considering his promise to buy breakfast for her. Therefore, Zhou Wen asked for a travel pass from Qin Wufu's adjutant before heading to a nearby city to buy a new phone. He didn't have many requirements for his phone. He just needed it to work, so he bought a relatively cheap phone and got a new number. Although he could request his old number back, Zhou Wen was afraid this might cause trouble with the flower, so he decided to change his number. After finishing everything, Zhou Wen logged into his communications app and planned on sending a group message to inform them that he had changed his number. However, the moment he logged in, the messages kept ringing. When he opened them, he saw that many of them were from Wang Lu. "Big liar, you aren't a man of your word. You're not sincere. You just held on for one day. You didn't even last to the second day. Miser, stingy. Why didn't you tell me that you can't bear to pay for breakfast? Are you not daring to say a word because you know you are in the wrong? Sorry, I was hunted by someone and lost my phone. I had no time to contact you. I won't forget what I promised you. Wait for me to return," Zhou Wen replied. Zhou Wen also replied to Lai Xuan's and Huang Jai's messages. Finally, Zhou Wen saw a system notification. When he opened it, he saw a friend request. Zhou Wen subconsciously wanted to swipe away the message. Typically, he wouldn't randomly add friends unless he had agreed on a friend request ahead of time. However, Zhou Wen was alarmed when he saw the ID of the requester. His hand, which was about to press the delete button, froze. The theurge, it can't be, it's just a coincidence. There's no signal at Chess Mountain that flower doesn't have hands. How does it use a phone? It even knows how to add me as a friend. Zhou Wen looked at his friend request in horror and had the urge to immediately delete it. However, Zhou Wen knew that escaping wasn't a solution, so he approved his friend request to see if the theurge was the flower or just a coincidence. Just as he accepted the request, the theurge sent a message. Why did you take so long to accept my friend request? Are you tired of living? Zhou Wen found it unbelievable that a flower could use a phone, but from the person's tone, it was identical to the flower's. Who are you? Zhou Wen probed. What's the matter? Have you forgotten me so quickly? Do you want me to make another wish for you to deepen your memories? A message quickly replied. Ah, it's really you, the theurge. I never expected you to be able to use the phone. I didn't think there was any signal there, right? How did you get on the internet? Zhou Wen replied. It's trivial. How can it daunt me? The theurge's reply clearly contained a hint of smugness, but she didn't say how she did it. Since you know how to use a phone, I suggest that you check out books or television dramas on the internet. I recommend Super Gene. It's especially good. You should be interested. Zhou Wen regretted the moment he sent the message, but it was too late to recall it. All right, I'll take a look. The theurge had already read the message and quickly replied Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen was very vexed. Perhaps the flower wasn't really just a harmless flower that could survive thanks to the sun. However, if it read Super Gene and started becoming a glutton like the characters in the book, wouldn't many humans be in trouble? Chapter 419. The theurge has learned how to use the internet. The theurge was like a teenager who had just learned how to chat online. Or perhaps she had been alone for too long. She kept chatting and talked about any topic under the sun. She asked Zhou Wen all sorts of questions, giving him no time to do anything else. After returning to the encampment, the theurge was still asking him all sorts of questions regarding the internet. She appeared very excited. Just as Zhou Wen was thinking about how he could send the theurge along her way, he suddenly received another message. What does it mean when the phone notifies me about a low battery? A phone is powered by a battery. If the battery's charge is used up, the phone will automatically be switched off. Only after charging it can it be used. Zhou Wen was immediately amused as he thought to himself, I doubt your crappy place has any power cables. You definitely won't be able to charge it. Let's see how you can come online and bother me in the future. How do I charge it? Can I strike it with lightning? The theurge sent another message. Definitely not. A lightning bolt's charge is unstable. It will overload the phone. You will need ordinary household power to charge a phone. You also need a specialized charger. You can look it up on the internet, Zhou Wen said. Zhou Wen was secretly delighted that there was no news from the theurge. He wondered if her phone had run out of battery, and he could finally be rid of her. After a while, the theurge sent another message. You need to bring me a small diesel dynamo, a barrel of diesel oil, and the phone's charger before noon tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll make a wish for you to become a limbless cripple. Zhou Wen was immediately awash with sadness. His mouth opened, unable to say a word. I'm being pursued by an enemy now. How can I have the time to do those things for you? Besides, I have to go to a nearby city to buy those things. Even if I were to go, I won't be able to return before noon tomorrow. Besides, I don't dare go since the powerful enemy is chasing me every day, Zhou Wen complained. What enemy? The Theurge sent a message. Zhou Wen recounted Jock's various abilities, and even embellished and exaggerated them. He deliberately exaggerated Jock's strength, as though he would be killed by Jock the moment he went out. I thought it would be some extraordinary character. So it's just a lowly character. How about this? Before evening tomorrow, bring me all the things I want. I'll give you something good so you can easily kill that enemy, the Theurge said disdainfully. What is it? Zhou Wen's heart stirred. You'll know when you arrive. Remember, you have to deliver the items before the sun sets tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll make a wish for you to be limbless. After the Theurge sent the message, there was silence. It was unknown if she was out of battery. Zhou Wen sent a few more messages, but there was no response. She had likely run out of battery. I wonder if the flower's wishing ability can be effective from a distance. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't worth it to bet his limbs on a diesel dynamo and some diesel oil. Furthermore, the flower had said that it would give him something good to kill Jock. Zhou Wen felt that he could make the trip. He then left the door and rode the mutated stone Kai to rush to the nearby city at full speed. He wanted to return quickly and satisfy the flower so that he could read and game in peace. The mutated stone Kai was as fast as a car. Furthermore, there wasn't a need to take the main roads. Zhou Wen headed straight for the nearby city and quickly bought all the items needed. He originally imagined that he would encounter Jock's ambush on the way, so he had been very careful, but nothing happened. Jock never appeared. It wasn't that Jock didn't wish to ambush Zhou Wen, but that he had no time at all. Xianxia had indeed given him quite a number of companion beasts, but they had owners. Xianxia had to think of a way to transfer their companion beasts over. Those people were all criminals from Heaven Prison. When Xianxia sent them over, he never expected them to return alive. Jock robbed them of their companion beasts one by one, spending quite a bit of time and energy. It couldn't be done quickly, so he had no time to ambush Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen took the mini diesel dynamo, a 20-kilogram drum of diesel oil, as well as the charger to Chess Mountain, and found the flower. Just place the things besides the mountain wall. A familiar woman's voice sounded from the flower. The Theurge, I've spent more than half of my savings to buy these things. You have to use them sparingly. If they're damaged, I won't have the money to buy you any more later, Zhou Wen said as he lamented because he didn't want the flower to get him to buy more items. Don't lie to me. I saw that the price is very cheap on the internet, the Theurge said. The price is very cheap, but I don't have the time to earn money. Without an income, how would I have the money? I've almost used up all my savings to buy these things, Zhou Wen said. The Theurge seemed to think that what Zhou Wen said made sense. She thought for a moment before saying, I have something here. Take it and exchange it for money. I'll leave it on the stone steps at the top of the mountain. Take it yourself. The thing I promised you is also there. You can use it to deal with your enemy. As long as you aren't too stupid, he will definitely die if he comes looking for you. What is it? Zhou Wen asked. You will know when you see it. The Theurch didn't tell him directly what the item was. Zhou Wen had no choice but to climb to the peak of Chess Mountain. Indeed, there were two things on the stone steps. One was a dimensional crystal, and the other was a petite bone flute. If your enemy comes looking for you again, blow the bone flute. When the time comes, it will definitely be of use. You can exchange the dimensional crystal for money. The Theurch's voice came from the mountain wall. Zhou Wen saw that the bone flute was very ancient and crude. He didn't know which animal's bone it was made of, but he didn't see any special aura flowing from it. It looked no different from something ordinary. The dimensional crystal was a primordial energy skill crystal. The shadow inside was in the form of a jade lute. It looked somewhat gorgeous, but he had no idea what level this primordial energy skill crystal was. He could only use his mysterious phone to check when he returned. He was afraid that the flower would take a fancy to his mysterious phone if he took it out. How do I use this bone flute? Zhou Wen put away the dimensional crystal and asked while holding the bone flute. When you see him again, use all your primordial energy to blow the bone flute. When the time comes, it will naturally be of use. However, let me tell you, this bone flute can only be used once. Don't use it randomly, the Theurch said. Seeing that she wasn't willing to say more, Zhou Wen had no choice but to put away the bone flute. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw that the diesel dynamo and diesel oil had disappeared. He did not know where they had gone. The flower didn't make another sound and ignored Zhou Wen. This suited Zhou Wen's intentions, as he rode the mutated stone Kai out of Chess Mountain. After he left Chess Mountain, he hurriedly took out his mysterious phone and snapped a picture of the dimensional crystal. This shocked him. The dimensional crystal was a mythical primordial energy skill crystal. Chapter 420, Mythical Primordial Energy Skill. Jade Lute Crystal, Mythical. These few words made Zhou Wen's heart tremble, and he nearly shouted out. However, just as Zhou Wen was about to put it into his phone, a notification popped up. Requires 41 Constitution, 21 Spatial Stat, Spatial Type Life Providence, Spatial Type Life Soul. Insufficient stats. Unable to absorb. Not only does it have a special stat requirement, but it also has a life providence and life soul requirement. I've never seen a spatial stat before and I have no idea where to get it, and it asks for 41 Constitution. That also means that I basically can't master mythical primordial energy skills at the epic stage, because the highest epic experts can only reach 40 Constitution. Zhou Wen couldn't help but feel depressed when he saw this. The life providence and life soul requirements were likely satisfied with his god-fiend life providence and lost country, but the stats were indeed a little troublesome. The requirements were too high, but he ultimately had a chance of absorbing it. Unlike ordinary people, who didn't even have a chance, Zhou Wen naturally didn't plan on selling it. Since he could use it, he naturally had to keep it for himself. When he obtained enough stats, he could absorb it to gain insights into a mythical primordial energy skill. Just the thought of using a mythical primordial energy skill at the epic stage thrilled him. After putting the crystal into the chaos space, Zhou Wen looked at the bone lute in his hand. The crystal that the flower randomly produced was at the mythical stage, so it would definitely be of great use. Since she said he could only use it once, Zhou Wen didn't attempt to try it. He used his phone to snap the lute, but his phone didn't react. After putting the bone lute into the chaos space, Zhou Wen thought of something. The Chaos Bead had the first order of chaos in it, and he had gained a basic mastery of it. However, he didn't continue cultivating it. However, this primordial energy art was most likely spatial in nature. It was somewhat similar to the God-Fiend era. Zhou Wen had too many primordial energy arts, and he really didn't have the energy to study the first order of chaos. However, now that he thought about it, having more didn't disadvantage him. Those mythical primordial energy skills had requirements on life providences and life souls, so it might be useful in the future. Of course, that was just what Zhou Wen thought. He no longer had the energy to study the first order of chaos. He needed to condense the other life souls before advancing them to the perfect body. If he couldn't break through to the mythical stage, it wouldn't be too late to study it again. Although he had taken the flower's bone loot, Zhou Wen didn't plan on using it. The flower said that the bone loot could help him against his enemy, but Zhou Wen wasn't sure what the actual situation was. If it was the key to unsealing Chess Mountain, wouldn't he be in deep trouble? Before he returned to the encampment, Zhou Wen's phone rang. He saw that it was a message from Wang Lu. The message had been sent quite some time ago, but Zhou Wen hadn't received it because he was out of reception. "Do you need any help?" Wang Lu's message was very simple. "I can handle it. I'll return after settling this matter," Zhou Wen replied. Soon, Wang Lu replied, "I'll wait for you. You need to make up for the breakfast that you owe me." "How do I make up for this? Won't I be always buying? If breakfast isn't enough, use lunch to make up for it." "All right." After chatting a little with Wang Lu, he realized that the Thirch had actually sent a message. It looked like her phone had been charged. Zhou Wen found it somewhat odd as he thought to himself, "It's just a flower. How did it use the dynamo?" Opening the message, he saw that she had sent an emoji. She's really quick to learn. She can even use emojis. Zhou Wen didn't reply, afraid that she would just keep chatting with him. It would take away all his time from other matters. Seeing that Zhou Wen didn't reply, the Thirch sent a series of emojis over. Zhou Wen naturally ignored her. After a while, the Thirch asked, "Did I use the emojis wrongly? Why aren't you answering me?" Typically, people who have nothing to do will use emojis. I didn't think it was important seeing that you just sent emojis. In high school, a female classmate had added Zhou Wen as a friend and would occasionally send him an emoji. Zhou Wen never replied because he had no idea what the expression meant, nor did he know how to reply. "Oh, I see." The Thirch suddenly understood. "Now that you have an electric generator, you don't have to worry about not having enough power. You can go online to watch television dramas or something. It's very interesting." Zhou Wen hurriedly introduced a few classic comedies to her. Zhou Wen thought to himself, if she watches those television dramas and gets influenced by the characters and concepts in the television dramas, it would be great to have her turn into a clowning idiot. At the very least, she wouldn't have the thought of killing humans again. "I'd have done so much good." "All right, I'll go take a look. Remember to pay for my number's service. If they cut off my service, you're dead." She even knows about service payments. Zhou Wen was exasperated. Fortunately, he had just received benefits from her, so he didn't care about the amount of money. Furthermore, he had saved quite a lot of money on his phone previously. As long as she didn't crazily make phone calls and use the internet, he didn't need to pay a single cent this year. It was unknown if the Thirch had started watching a television drama or not, but she didn't send any more messages. It made Zhou Wen heave a sigh of relief as he sped back to the encampment. Lu Su came to look for Zhou Wen again in the evening, but she realized that he hadn't returned. Just as she was about to return, she saw Zhou Wen. "Zhou Wen," Lu Su called out. "Dr. Lu, are you staying here too?" Zhou Wen walked over and asked. "I don't live here. I came here especially to find you," Lu Su said. "You are looking for me. What's the matter?" Zhou Wen looked at Lu Su in puzzlement. "Why didn't you report to the medical team?" Lu Su asked. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and said, "To be honest, I'm actually not an intern doctor. This identification is only for convenience." "That's not important. Since you already have the identity of an intern doctor, you should do something that an intern doctor would do, right? I've been researching rashes all this time, hoping to solve this virus, but the progress isn't that great. Can you tell me what medicine you used? If your medicine needs to be kept confidential, you don't have to tell me the exact composition. I just want to know if antibodies will be formed after using your medicine. Are there any negative side effects? If it can form antibodies and it doesn't have any negative effects, I hope you can produce some. I'll apply for funds to buy it as a vaccine for the soldiers. This way, it will greatly reduce the casualties, and it will be of great help for the combat situation in the future. Even if it doesn't form antibodies, I hope to buy a batch for backup," Lu Su rattled off. Chapter 421, Mythical Companion Bees. "Dr. Lu, I'm really sorry. I didn't use any medicine. In fact, what I used to treat those soldiers is the ability of one of my companion beasts. As for antibodies, I'm not sure either. I don't know how long the effects of the companion beast's skill last. Although I wish to help you, there's not much I can do. If a soldier suffers from such injuries, you can call for me at any time," Zhou Wen said. Lu Su was somewhat disappointed when she heard Zhou Wen. Companion beasts' primordial energy skills were typically temporal. They were of use at the time in question, but would not be of any use once the period was over. They also wouldn't form any antibodies. In this era, companion beasts are becoming more and more widespread in medicine. To have such a companion beast is already a good condition for becoming a doctor. Are you interested in learning some medical knowledge from me?" Lu Su felt that it would be a waste for Zhou Wen to not be a doctor with such a companion beast. Zhou Wen shook his head and said, "I'm really sorry. I still have many things to do. I usually don't have much time." Although Lu Su was somewhat disappointed, she didn't say anything else. Since Zhou Wen had the ability to heal the rashes, this was already an unexpected harvest. It could reduce many casualties. This matter didn't end there. After a few days, Lu Su would realize that the soldiers who had been injected with the poison had become immune. Even if they were stationed by the river, they wouldn't get rashes again. Although Dr. Darkness was only at the epic stage, he was no ordinary companion beast. Regardless of his background or abilities, he was very special. Zhou Wen returned to his dorm and finally had a good sleep. Once he woke up, he headed to the underground sea to deliver a palm strike to the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon already had several poison boils formed from palm imprints. Although the poison boils had yet to take its life, it was clear that the Black Dragon's mental state was no longer right. If the other 8 Black Dragons were like muscular young men, then this Black Dragon was like an old man in his twilight. Its movements slowed down significantly, and it looked rather muddle-headed, as if its mind was no longer clear. From the looks of it, the poison has had a huge impact on it. However, it's unknown how long it will take to poison it to death. Zhou Wen was most looking forward to having a black dragon companion beast drop. This fellow had its speed and strength greatly weakened due to its chains. Once the restrictions were removed, Zhou Wen would be killed by the black dragon in less than a minute. The difference was too great. If he could obtain the black dragon as a companion beast, he might be able to have a true mythical fighter and not need to slowly nurture his companion beasts like Banana Fairy. Although it was somewhat fun to nurture them from the beginning, their combat abilities were indeed lacking. Furthermore, it was too slow. Tyrant Behemoth was still at the legendary stage, and it was unknown when it could advance to the epic stage. For 2 consecutive days, the Theurch didn't send any messages. Zhou Wen could finally raid and game in peace. However, Zhou Wen had almost wiped out all the mortal monsters in the game dungeons. There was no point in continuing the grinding. All he could do was continue raiding. Has Jock given up? It's been a few days, but why hasn't anything happened? Zhou Wen didn't make any progress while reading, so he began thinking of Jock. To fight such a fellow was terrifying, but he had a faint sense of excitement. Back then, Zhou Wen felt that his train of thought had become much clearer, and his thoughts had become more lively and spirited. At that moment, Jock couldn't control his excitement. In front of him was an elderly with a head full of white hair. The old man looked like he had dementia as he sat there motionless. However, he emitted a strange sanguine glow. His eyes shimmered with a red light. The blood hex clown possessed the old man and replaced his will to control his body. Even his memories were controlled. Jock discovered a huge secret from the old man's memories. This old prisoner actually had a mythical companion beast. He had never told anyone about it and had paid a huge price to nurture it to the epic stage. He originally imagined that he could become an overlord by relying on his mythical companion beast in the future. But too many resources were needed to advance a mythical companion beast. He couldn't afford it, so all he could do was use his position to his advantage and get some information. However, just as he nurtured his companion beast to the epic stage, his crimes were discovered. The Special Inspector Bureau secretly arrested him and imprisoned him in heaven. Because his position was special, and the object of corruption was a special item that couldn't be handled openly, the Bureau had taken custody of the case. As he was only a corrupt criminal, the Bureau merely questioned him as per usual, without wasting too many resources. The elder hung on and didn't reveal the matter regarding the mythical companion beast. This time, he had been sent to Jock by Xianxia. Originally, it was because he had a companion beast that could change colors for concealment. Jock had specifically asked for it. To his surprise, Jock actually discovered the biggest secret in his memories. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. What a fool! To be so easily caught by the bastards at the Bureau, despite having such a mythical companion beast. He's trash even with one. However, this has ended up benefiting me. Jock didn't hesitate any further as he activated the Blood Hex Clown's ability. He controlled the elder's body and made him pay with his life to transfer the companion beast to Jock. When the man fell like a desiccated corpse, a strange tattoo appeared on Jock's arm, a purple cat-shaped tattoo. Xianxia, you might have considered all possibilities, but you probably never expected that I would be this lucky, right? With this mythical companion beast, The restriction you left on me can no longer restrain me. After I enjoy the beauty feast, I will definitely go to the capital and kill every one of you in the bureau." Jock looked at the purple cat symbol on his arm as the excitement on his face intensified. When Jock snatched the old man's mythical companion beast, Zhou Wen also wore a look of delight. After waiting for so long, the fruit on the dead man tree had finally ripened and dropped. The phone automatically vibrated as Zhou Wen obtained the fruit in-game. When the blood-colored avatar caught the fruit, a notification popped up on his phone. "Mythical Companion Egg. Do you want to incubate it?" Mythical Companion Egg. Zhou Wen was pleasantly surprised and delighted. Although he had already guessed it, seeing a real mythical companion egg excited him greatly. He hurriedly checked the mythical companion egg stats. Chapter 422. Demonic Neonate. Demonic Neonate, Mortal Evolvable. Life Providence, Child of Dimension. Life Soul, Supreme True Demon. Wheel of Destiny, 1 spin. Strength, 11. Speed, 11. Constitution, 11. Primordial Energy, 11. Talent Skill, Demonic Sword. Companion Form, none. What's going on? Zhou Wen was dumbfounded, momentarily unsure of the situation. The stats of the demonic neonate were really strange. Zhou Wen originally believed that he could directly hatch a mythical companion beast. After all, he had Dr. Darkness as a precedent, but apparently things didn't turn out the way he expected. From its mortal stage and evolvable postfix, it was likely the primordial state of a mythical companion beast. Even so, mythical creatures wouldn't possess a life providence and life soul at the mortal stage. They had to slowly advance before condensing them. However, the demonic neonate actually had a life providence and life soul at the mortal stage. There was also a wheel of destiny that Zhou Wen had never seen before. Although he had no idea what was going on, Zhou Wen still hatched her. After absorbing plenty of primordial energy, the purple-copper companion egg transformed into a stream of light that fused into Zhou Wen's body, turning into a thumb-sized, purple-haired baby girl symbol that appeared on his arm. Zhou Wen summoned the demonic neonate. It was about 40 centimeters tall, the size of a doll. It had long purple hair. It wore purple armor while hugging an ancient purple copper sword. Zhou Wen saw that her face was no different from the fierce girl. However, her figure was much smaller, about the size of a baby. He sized up the girl, and the girl also glared at him with widened eyes, as though she was sizing him up. It made Zhou Wen feel a little frightened. The companion eggs produced on the dead man tree just grew in oddness. Dr. Darkness was already shocking enough. But this recently hatched dead man tree seemed to have a mind of her own. With a thought, the demonic neonate received his order. She carried the ancient sword in her arms and walked to a table beside him. With a light leap, she landed on the table and poured Zhou Wen a cup of tea. Zhou Wen immediately relaxed when he saw that she was as obedient as the typical companion beast. He got her to do some more things, and the demonic neonate did it according to Zhou Wen's instructions. Although it's a little strange, it shouldn't be a problem. Zhou Wen unsummoned the demonic neonate and took out his phone to enter the game dungeon. After some choosing, he chose the Myriad Buddha Cave in Dragon Gate Grotto. After entering, he summoned the demonic neonate. Most of the monsters in the dungeons had been killed by Zhou Wen. There were still some scattered golden warriors in Myriad Buddha Cave, which Zhou Wen couldn't be bothered to waste time finding them. Now, he could use them to test the strength of the demonic neonate. After searching for a while, he finally found a golden warrior. Zhou Wen gave the order for her to kill it and waited to see if she could do it. The golden warrior was at the legendary stage, and its defense was astonishing. As for the demonic neonate, it was only at the mortal stage. Logically speaking, the baby shouldn't be a golden warrior's match. However, a demonic neonate had a life providence and life soul, something ordinary legendary creatures didn't possess. Zhou Wen brought her here to see if her life providence and life soul could be used. The demonic neonate didn't move after receiving Zhou Wen's order. She stood there with the ancient sword in her arms as she looked at the golden warrior. Is she afraid? As Zhou Wen was thinking, he suddenly saw the ancient sword in the demonic neonate's arms automatically leave the scabbard. It transformed into a purple beam that flew out. Even Zhou Wen didn't see the sword beam clearly. The golden warrior was actually split into two by the sword beam. It dropped a dimensional crystal and dissipated. The flying sword circled around before returning to the demonic neonate's scabbard. What a powerful primordial energy skill. It's definitely not at the level of a mortal primordial energy skill. It's even stronger than my transcendent flying immortal. Logically speaking, it should expend a lot of primordial energy. Primordial energy at the mortal stage isn't enough to sustain such a powerful primordial energy skill. How did she do it? Zhou Wen was alarmed, as he constantly sized up the demonic neonate. After some thought, Zhou Wen unsummoned the demonic neonate and entered the extremely vast Zhualu battlefield. Zhou Wen ran very far in game before finally finding a surviving Kai. He summoned the demonic neonate and tried to get her to kill it. Although the Kai wasn't as powerful as the mutated stone Kai, it was still top-notch at the epic stage. The demonic neonate continued hugging the ancient sword and coldly looked at the Kai that was rushing towards them. When the Kai was close to her, the ancient sword in her arms automatically unsheathed itself and slashed at the Kai with the purple beam. The Kai let out a roar as black smoke condensed into a dragon life soul. It spat out black smoke at the purple glow, hoping to block it. Zhou Wen had seen the black smoke's might, but the purple sword beam directly split the black smoke, slicing both the life soul and Kai into two. Zhou Wen was dumbfounded as he watched the ancient sword return to its scabbard. The demonic neonate held the ancient sword, still standing there expressionlessly. This fellow is really impressive. Is this still a mortal companion beast? If she continues advancing, what kind of changes will there be? Zhou Wen felt that the advancement of the demonic neonate would definitely be different from other mythical creatures. After all, she already had a life providence and life soul, so it was hard to imagine what would happen when she evolved again. Will she condense a second life providence and life soul? Or will the original life providence and life soul be enhanced? Zhou Wen was stumped. Furthermore, the Wheel of Destiny gave him an odd feeling. It's a pity I don't have a true mythical companion beast. I wonder if all of them will have something like that after advancing to the mythical stage. Zhou Wen wondered, but he didn't have an answer. Humans had yet to advance to the mythical stage. Only the 6 families had some mythical companion beasts. Zhou Wen didn't have many friends in the 6 families, nor did he have any place to ask around. However, it was now confirmed. Although the demonic neonate was still at the mortal stage, Her combat strength was far stronger than most epic creatures. With just her sword, she could probably kill most epic creatures. This is for you to eat. You have to work hard in the future. Zhou Wen handed her an epic companion egg that had dropped previously. Zhou Wen couldn't bring himself to use it to feed his other companion beasts. However, he hadn't been grinding instance dungeons recently, so there hadn't been a chance for companion eggs to drop. This was one of the companion eggs he had left inside the dungeon without picking up. To his surprise, the demonic neonate only took one glance at the epic companion egg before turning her head to the side. The cold attitude left Zhou Wen depressed. Chapter 423, I Want a Person. You aren't even eating an epic companion egg. Aren't you being a little too picky with your food? Zhou Wen thought to himself. If it were Tyrant Behemoth, he would have run over like a pug. Yet, this fellow didn't even bother with it. The demonic neonate remained standing there with a cold expression, without any reaction. It was as though she only moved when Zhou Wen gave the order. Forget it. You will eat when you are hungry. Zhou Wen saw that the phone didn't give him a hungry notification, and left the companion egg in the dungeon. He could retrieve it when the demonic neonate became hungry. It's not a solution if this continues. I can't grind dungeons now, but my few companion beasts need to eat, especially Tyrant Behemoth. If it wasn't for the fact that I've hatched quite a lot of food for it, and I've been rationing just to keep it alive, I would long be out of stock. Zhou Wen failed to come up with a good solution. All he could do was wait for the black dragon to die before grinding. A medical report about the soldiers shocked Lu Su. The soldiers who had been saved by Zhou Wen were healed in less than 2 days. The scars on their bodies would only disappear after some time, however. It didn't stop them from participating in battle. Another breakout creature appeared the day before. A large number of soldiers had participated in the encirclement attack, only to have a few soldiers splashed with the bloody water. Among them were 3 soldiers that Zhou Wen had saved. Red rashes appeared on the other soldiers as they fainted on the spot and were dragged into the river. However, the 3 of them were completely fine. They were lucky to have escaped the calamity. Lu Su had someone draw their blood for tests. The test results showed that they had a high resistance against the rashes. Even if the virus entered their bodies, it wouldn't cause too much damage. Instead, it would slowly die, unable to proliferate. How did this happen? It could be said that it's a coincidence if 1 or 2 of them are like that. But all of them are like that, so there's only one possibility. Zhou Wen's companion beast ability can really make their bodies produce antibodies. The more Lu Su thought about it, the more convinced she was. This discovery excited Lu Su. Although there wasn't any medicine, Zhou Wen's companion beast's ability was more effective than medicine. If all soldiers could have such resistance, their battle at Chess Mountain would become much more proactive. At the very least, they didn't need to worry about dropping into the blood river or fighting in it. They also didn't have to worry about getting infected with rashes if they stayed on duty for too long. This way, they could send more people to strengthen surveillance. It was easier to deal with any problems that cropped up. Previously, despite having enough manpower, as the soldiers couldn't stay by the river for long, they could only divide the manpower into several groups and switch shifts. With Zhou Wen's abilities, there was no need to go through so much trouble. They could set up more guards and expand the surveillance range. This time, Lu Su wasn't in a rush to look for Zhou Wen. Instead, she went to Qin Wufu's office. Qin Wufu was handling official matters when he heard the guard say that Lu Su wanted to see him. He stopped whatever he was doing and ordered the guards to invite Lu Su in. Although Lu Su was only in her 30s and wasn't of a high-ranking position, the medical team determined the lives of more than 10,000 officers and soldiers. Qin Wufu didn't dare to be negligent. "Suzu, why are you looking for me?" Qin Wufu didn't have any heirs. Furthermore, Lu Su's family had some ties with him. He always treated Lu Su as his junior. Lu Su said, "Uncle Qin, I want to ask you for someone. Who would be so important to have you personally make this trip?" Qin Wufu asked Lu Su curiously. After Lu Su took charge of the medical team, she did not make use of his relationship to request any conditions. However, she managed the medical team well, and the soldiers all acknowledged her. This made Qin Wufu very satisfied. Now that Lu Su suddenly requested someone, Qin Wufu was curious as to who she wanted. "An intern doctor," Lu Su said. Qin Wufu found it even more strange. He looked at Lu Su and asked, "The medical team's personnel are all under your jurisdiction. Why are you asking for an intern doctor from me?" With that said, Qin Wufu was enlightened. "You want to recruit new intern doctors. It's not that I don't wish to help you do the recruitment, but there are just too few students studying medicine now. Ever since the dimensional storms, the number of people suffering from illnesses has decreased every year, and the number of people who study medicine is decreasing. Furthermore, being a military doctor requires medical skills. Uncle Qin, there's no need to hire a new doctor. I just want an intern at the encampment," Lu Su said. "An intern doctor in the encampment?" Qin Wufu was slightly taken aback. He knew that Lu Su wasn't someone who would cause trouble for nothing. Since she wanted this person, the person definitely existed in the encampment. "He's in the encampment, but doesn't come under Lu Su's management." Qin Wufu immediately thought of Zhou Wen. He looked at Lu Su with an odd expression and asked, "Don't tell me the person you want is Zhou Wen." "Uncle Qin, you really know him?" "That's right, I just want him. I hope that he can join the medical team as an official member," Lu Su said. Qin Wufu looked at Lu Su and asked, "Why do you want him?" Qin Wufu found it extremely odd. He knew very well that Zhou Wen was only an ordinary college student, and he didn't study medicine. He had also randomly filled up the document for Zhou Wen, making him an intern doctor. It was mainly to allow Zhou Wen to enter the encampment and not have to undergo training with the ordinary soldiers. "With him, we can resolve a problem that has been plaguing you all this while, Uncle Qin," Lu Su said calmly. "Oh, what problem?" Qin Wufu looked at Lu Su with piqued interest and asked. "The rashes problem. With Zhou Wen around, our soldiers won't have to be afraid of the blood-colored river or rashes. They can always be on sentry. They don't have to frequently switch shifts, and they can fight in the blood-colored river." Lu Su enunciated each word clearly. "What? Are you sure?" Qin Wufu stood up in shock and asked Lu Su. Lu Su was right. This was indeed a problem that had been plaguing him. Due to this problem, the military had lost at least 40% of its combat strength. It also weakened the surveillance on Chess Mountain. In the past, with Yan Zhen around, even though his temper was a little strange, he was able to help him resolve these problems. Although Lu Su had the same excellent medical skills, she could not resolve these strange problems. Qin Wufu was unable to contact the missing Yan Zhen, and there wasn't any news from the coroner, so it gave him a headache. Now, Lu Su suddenly said that Zhou Wen could solve the problem of the Blood River. It surprised Qin Wufu. He found it unbelievable. The soldiers that Zhou Wen saved were all previously infected with a bout of rashes. After Zhou Wen treated them, their bodies are now immune to the Blood River. This is some experimental data I gathered. Lu Su handed the information she had brought over to Qin Wufu. Chapter 424 Jock's Attack. After Qin Wufu read the information, his expression turned odd. Lu Su said excitedly, "Uncle Qin, with Zhou Wen's ability, our strategy at Chess Mountain won't be so passive." "I'm afraid I can't give this person to you," Qin Wufu said. Lu Su couldn't help but be taken aback and asked in puzzlement, "Why?" "Uncle Qin, don't you believe me? I can guarantee you that the data is real. Zhou Wen's companion beast's ability can effectively form antibodies. It can make the soldiers immune to the blood in the river. The side effects are also very tiny." "No, Suzu, you misunderstood me. I believe in your research and information, and know that Zhou Wen might have such abilities. However, I still can't give him to you. Or rather, I don't have the authority to give him to you," Qin Wufu said with a bitter smile. "You are the commander-in-chief of Chess Mountain. How can you not have the power? What background does Zhou Wen have? Could he be sent by the Federation?" Lu Su asked in puzzlement. "No, he should be considered a member of the Sunset Army. However, his identity is a little special," said Qin Wufu. "Regardless of his identity, since he's from the Sunset Army, even if he's the overseer, he has an obligation to protect the lives of soldiers. He has the responsibility to contribute," Lu Su said sternly. "If he was the overseer, that would be easy." "Unfortunately, he's not," Qin Wufu said. "Uncle Qin, who is he?" Lu Su could barely hold it in anymore. "His name is Zhou Wen. The man Madame Lan married also has the Zhou surname." "What kind of status do you think he has?" Qin Wufu said. Lu Su's eyes widened and she said in surprise, "Madame Lan actually found such a young husband, that age gap." "What nonsense are you talking about? Madame Lan's husband is Zhou Wen's father. Zhou Wen is still studying at Sunset College, and he's a student. He used to study under Wang Minjuan for a period of time, so the Bureau is targeting him and is attempting to bring him back for interrogation. Madame Lan placed him here because she hopes that we can protect him. Now, if I were to get him to treat those soldiers, how would I answer Madame Lan if one of the soldiers comes from the Bureau and something happened?" Qin Wufu berated. Lu Su was enlightened. "I see. However, if that's the case, he should be more willing to help because of Madame Lan, right?" "Nonsense. I'm saying no. And that's final. We mustn't let anything happen to him." It wasn't that Qin Wufu didn't want Zhou Wen to help, and Sheng had repeatedly exhorted him not to let anything happen to Zhou Wen or interfere with his actions. If anything happened to Zhou Wen, Madame Lan would definitely pursue the matter, and even the overseer wouldn't be able to stop her. Qin Wufu knew that Tianzuo was the most filial, so there was no way he would go against his mother. Qin Wufu knew Madame Lan's temper. Even though Madame Lan was usually easy to talk to, if anything were to really touch her bottom line, she would be an unbridled bull that couldn't be stopped. Lu Su wasn't willing to give up despite being rejected by Qin Wufu. She could clearly prevent so many soldiers from dying. So why couldn't they use Zhou Wen? Lu Su felt that Zhou Wen wasn't a foppish scion. From her observation, she found him a very gentle person who was very willing to help others. He didn't have the temperament of a scion. Uncle Qin might say no, but if Zhou Wen is willing, that's a whole other matter. Lu Su decided to convince Zhou Wen herself. After Lu Su left, Qin Wufu looked at the information in his hand and couldn't help but mutter to himself, "It's such a pity for Zhou Wen." If he hadn't been embroiled in Wang Minjuan's matter, his future would have been limitless. Now that he's being targeted by the Bureau, it's hard to tell if he can live to grow. Lu Su walked out of Qin Wufu's office and headed straight for Zhou Wen's residence. Zhou Wen was reading a book when Lu Su came and informed him of her intentions. Zhou Wen waited for Lu Su to finish before looking at her and saying, "Dr. Lu, if it was in the past, I would definitely have agreed to it without question. But I probably can't agree to it now." Lu Su sighed and said, "I can understand. After all, you have been targeted by the Bureau. If you interact with the soldiers too much, it will give the Bureau an opportunity." Zhou Wen shook his head. "I'm not worried about my safety. I'm just afraid that the soldiers will be implicated by me." Lu Su didn't say anything else. She felt that Zhou Wen's words were just an excuse. No matter how domineering the Bureau was impossible for them to bring men to charge into a military camp and kill them. So how could they endanger ordinary soldiers? Lu Su believed that Zhou Wen was only saying this to save her dignity. However, Lu Su didn't find anything wrong with Zhou Wen's actions. After all, everyone only had one life. It wasn't wrong to cherish their lives. Everyone had the right to protect themselves. Therefore, Lu Su didn't say a word. Although she was somewhat disappointed, she decided to return to try extracting the antibodies from the few soldiers that Zhou Wen had treated. Although doing so would take quite a while, Lu Su had no other choice. "Dr. Lu, if there's nothing important, I hope you try not to come to my place in the future. If there is anything, it's better to send me a message." Zhou Wen felt that if Lu Su came over often, she might be implicated as well. A person like Jock was best at using someone's weakness. As long as it could achieve his goal, Zhou Wen believed that Jock would do anything. "Don't worry. I won't disturb you again." Lu Su couldn't help but feel completely disappointed when she heard that. After leaving Zhou Wen's dorm, Lu Su was about to return to study the antibodies when she saw a man dressed in an officer's uniform walk over. The officer had his head lowered as he walked, his cap covering most of his face. Lu Su didn't see his face, but when he got closer, the officer looked up. When Lu Su saw the officer, she found him odd. The officer in front of her looked to be in his 30s, and his face somewhat pale. There were quite a number of Sunset Army officers in their 30s, but this officer clearly had the looks of someone from the West District. He was very different from the people of the East District. Although the Sunset Army also had officers from the West District, there weren't many. Lu Su ought to know all of them, but she had never seen this officer before. Just as she was about to ask, the officer raised his hand and pressed it against her shoulder. Lu Su wanted to dodge, but her body refused to obey. She immediately stiffened once the hand touched her shoulder. She couldn't move. When she opened her mouth, no sound came out. The officer smiled at Lu Su and asked elegantly, "You just came out of Zhou Wen's room, right?" Chapter 425, Who's Surrounded. Zhou Wen had been wearing the Truth Listener earring. Although he was still in the room, he immediately discovered a problem. He opened the door and walked out, only to see Jock standing there in the officer's uniform. "We meet again." "Not bad. You have protected my ingredients well." Jock stared at Zhou Wen's body from head to toe as though he was examining his food. "Aren't you afraid of being surrounded when entering a military camp so brazenly? You won't be able to escape like the previous time. Or should I say, is this just another one of your avatars?" Zhou Wen also stared at Jock as he sized him up. Jock gave a sinister smile. "It's hard to say who's being surrounded. As for this being my main body or my avatar, you can guess. If you're right, I can let you choose how I'll cook you." Zhou Wen silently held the bamboo blade. He didn't want to guess or say any nonsense like "release Lu Su." To a person like Jock, those words were meaningless. Life was probably inferior to an ant to him. To Zhou Wen's surprise, Jock pushed Lu Su towards him. Zhou Wen didn't help Lu Su up. Instead, he took a few steps back and allowed Lu Su to stagger to the ground. Lu Su was alarmed, puzzled about Zhou Wen's actions. Why wasn't he willing to even help her? She was just about to stand up when she heard Zhou Wen say, "Sit there and don't move." Lu Su didn't know what Zhou Wen meant, but she knew that the situation wasn't right. Upon hearing Zhou Wen's words, she sat on the ground and didn't stand up. She had guessed that Jock was likely a member of the Special Inspector Bureau. "Do we call for help?" Lu Su asked Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen shook his head slightly as his eyes remained peeled at Jock. Jock laughed. "There's no need to be so nervous. I did plant a life blast on her, but I didn't plan on detonating it. In fact, it's not just her. In the entire camp, everyone except you has been planted with a life blast. As long as I'm willing, I can hold a fireworks party here at any time. Do you want to see it?" When Lu Su heard the words "life blast," her body trembled. She clearly knew what the words meant. She also knew why Zhou Wen hadn't helped her up. If Zhou Wen had touched her just now, she might have already exploded. "Zhou Wen, don't bother about me. Inform the deputy governor. We can't let such a person leave no matter what," Lu Su said through gritted teeth. "It looks like you don't believe me." Jock snapped his fingers and they heard continuous explosions in the encampment. Zhou Wen and Lu Su watched as a soldier walked over and exploded. Such explosions rang several times in the other parts of the military camp. Zhou Wen counted silently in his heart and heard a total of 5 explosions. The entire military camp was in disarray. Alarms sounded everywhere. The soldiers were frantically rushing to the locations of the explosions. Lu Su looked at the blood on the ground not far away and was dumbfounded. It wasn't as if she had never seen a dead person. Many people died fighting dimensional creatures, but this was the first time she had seen someone die like this. Furthermore, Jock also said that all the people in the encampment, including her, had been planted with a life blast. Just thinking about how all the soldiers could explode in the same manner, Lu Su felt a chill down her spine and her body involuntarily trembled. Lu Su finally believed what Zhou Wen had said. He wasn't afraid that someone among the soldiers would try to harm him, but that he would implicate them. "How did you do it?" Zhou Wen's expression remained stoic as he asked Jock. He had done his research on Life Blast. It was similar to his Poison Dragon palm. It needed physical contact with a living medium to use Life Blast. Furthermore, the process was more complicated than the Poison Dragon palm. It wasn't as simple as a tap. Using ants and leaves as a medium was easy, but it wouldn't be that easy to use humans as a medium. Zhou Wen didn't believe that Jock had actually planted a life blast on everyone in the encampment. He felt that Jock was just bluffing. Perhaps only a few people had been planted with life blast. Jock said with a smile, "If it were someone else asking this question, I wouldn't bother answering. But you are different." With that said, Jock extended his hand and a purple cat appeared in front of him. It had short, purple fur, and its tail was curled up. However, its eyes were black. Furthermore, its eyes had double pupils that made it look extremely demonic. A mythical hex cat demon. Although it's still at the epic stage and hasn't really advanced to the mythical stage, its abilities are extremely compatible with mine. After obtaining it, I don't have to personally plant a life blast. All I need to do is add life blast to its curses. Everyone that's cursed by it will be automatically planted with life blast, Jock said excitedly. The Hex Cat Demon and his abilities were a perfect match, greatly boosting Jock's abilities. There should be a limit to the curse, right? It's impossible that this cat can curse whoever it wishes. Zhou Wen glanced at the chaotic military camp and continued speaking to Jock. Of course there are restrictions. There is no power without restrictions. Although the Hex Cat Demon is a mythical creature, it also has restrictions. However, this limitation isn't a problem for me. So now, everyone in this military camp, including this woman, has become my bargaining chip. If you don't wish for all of them to turn into fireworks, follow me obediently, Jock said. Why don't you curse me directly? Isn't that more convenient? Zhou Wen asked again. Such a top-notch ingredient naturally can't be tainted at all. Otherwise, it will be a huge waste. Before making you into a delicacy, I won't let you suffer any damage. As Jock spoke, he saw Qin Wufu rushing over with a group of epic officers. With such strange explosions happening at the encampment, Qin Wufu immediately imagined that something had happened to Zhou Wen. If a dimensional creature from Chess Mountain had rushed out, it wouldn't have been completely silent. He could tell at a glance that the technique used was Life Blast. "Governor Qin, don't come over," Zhou Wen said to Qin Wufu. If it was really as Jock had said, everyone would be planted with Life Blast. Qin Wufu and those epic officers were terrifying bombs. Exploding and epic life forms, energy wouldn't be at the level of those soldiers. The entire encampment would probably be instantly flattened. Zhou Wen didn't want to be blasted to death. Is he from the Special Inspector Bureau? Qin Wufu stopped and looked at Zhou Wen and Jock, then at Lu Su sitting on the ground. Finally, his gaze landed on Jock. Although he could only see Jock's back, he was certain that he was from the Bureau. Although he was wearing a military uniform, he didn't have the bearing of a soldier at all.